It's alarming. Changing. Try to breathe sideways. You like to breathe. I was like, yes.
All right, I would like to officially call this meeting to order. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone who is in attendance today. Thank you for making the time to join us. And I would like to call out, this is our very first meeting of the year where every board member has been in attendance. So congratulations and welcome. It's lovely to see all your faces around the table. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which only includes the approval of the November 10th meeting minutes. Is there any, does anyone want to remove or append any item to the consent agenda? All right. If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the committee meetings. I just want to remind everyone, there are going to be 4 separate motions coming in from committees today. Motions do not require a second based on Robert's rules. The committee is the one who has made the second by authorizing them to bring it into the meeting. So I will not be calling for a second for those motions. All right, first up, academic excellence.
All right, thank you so much. The Academic Excellence Committee heard the following report. We first got a divisional update from Provost Coltman on academic affairs. She provided the background on our member class observations, of which several of you attended class. Thank you very much for that. And thank you to Provost Coltman's office, because you can imagine trying to condense all the classes across the entire university that worked for us to either see yesterday morning or this afternoon. That was a lot of work. So particular shout out to Renee Reed and Christy Shackelford from Provost Coltman's office for that. Provost Coltman also gave an update on the shared governance task force and shared data on instructional faculty service on divisional committees. She shared an update on funding related to Faculty Senate mini grants, which are funded by Academic Affairs and the President's Office, and the status of faculty hiring. Then we received an area spotlight on the adult degree program. We know we have a great traditional 4-year or 5 or sometimes 6-year program here at JMU, but there are lots of other ways you can receive continuing education. So we heard from Nick Swartz, the interim dean for the School of Professional and Continuing Education. He provided an overview of the school's portfolio that includes the Lifelong Learning Institute, the non-credit professional development, and the adult degree program, the K-12 youth programs, and credit-bearing programs in partnership with colleges across academic affairs. The program director for the adult degree program, Daniel Robinson, was with us. He shared the current program structure and it's focused on working with adult learners completing their bachelor's degrees online. He described plans for enrollment growth and an expanded emphasis on multiple kinds of experiential learning, including research and study abroad. And study abroad is a rare occurrence in adult degree programs, so we're working on that. The committee had a wonderful panel that included adult degree graduates. We heard from Pam Sloan, who, by the way, came over from Richmond. It was the first time she had ever set foot on campus. She's a graduate of the adult degree program. So it was nice to hear her perspective. She said her junior daughter is their top choice. So she's got good things to say. We also heard from Donna Garber, who shared the value of the experience in the adult degree program. And they really helped us understand why, out of all the online opportunities for online degree programs, why they chose JMU. And big shocker, a lot of it had to do with the people the personable approach that JMU gives to each student as they're entering the program. We got curriculum updates. We heard from Paula Maxwell, the Associate Vice Provost for Curriculum. She gave us updates on pending curriculum changes and proposed 3 items that we will need to approve here today before going to Chef. Paula provided an overview of the request for the discontinuance of the e-learning certificate. Courses currently that are part of that certificate have been integrated now into the existing educational technology certificate, rendering the e-learning certificate duplicative. No new students will be enrolled. There's a pause essentially into this summer of 2024. Madam Rector, on motion from committee, I move the full board approve discontinuance of the e-learning certificate.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion about this motion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
All
All right, thank you. So approved.
right, thank you. Next, we heard about the proposal to create a new online graduate certificate in literacy education from Mark Lewis, Professor of Literacy Education in the College of Education. This certificate will allow teachers to earn a reading specialist endorsement and serve in and allow them to serve as reading specialists in their schools and districts across the state. You might be aware the Virginia Literacy Act was passed in 2022, expanded school districts needs to hire endorsed reading specialists substantially. So this program will be targeting currently practicing teachers that already have a master's degree, but are interested in earning a reading specialist endorsement in Virginia. The program would commence in fall of 2024 and an estimated 20 new members per cohort. No new resources are needed, and the certificate will provide opportunities for additional enrollment with increases sustained by existing faculty. Madam Rector, on motion from committee, I move the full board to approve the new graduate certificate in literacy education.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion about this motion? All those in favor?
I
Any opposition? So moved.
appreciate that reinforcement in the literacy force. Thank you, JMU. The third proposal was a credit hour change for the counseling and supervision doctoral program. The existing program prepares already licensed and experienced mental health counselors and school counselors to provide education, training, supervision, and research to support new professionals in mental health efforts in our communities. Effective summer 2025, to remain in good standing with the Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs, the credit hours have to increase from 48 to 60, as the new accreditation standards now require that all doctoral programs have a minimum of 60 credits. 1 existing class and 3 new courses will be added to the curriculum. 1 tenure track faculty member will be needed to deliver the program, but the cost of offset by tuition generated by increased credit hours and capacity for new enrollment will cover the cost of the tenure track faculty member. Madam Rector, on motion from committee, I move the full board approve the credit change to the counseling and supervision program.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion about this motion? All those in favor? Any opposition? So moved.
Okay, this does not require our approval today, but we did have a chance to hear from Fletcher Linder, who presented information on a new major in general studies that would be added to the individualized study degree program. Now, this is a new major that provides flexible options for students who've completed 5 or more semesters and still have not found a suitable major program. These students will complete a set of core courses that synthesize information and skills from the student's coursework into a scholarly product. The program will allow a degree completion option for students who would normally discontinue. And Fletcher gave us some really interesting data. About 120 students a year who've earned more than 90 credits leave JMU without completing a degree, which is not unique to JMU, I might add. This is a national issue. But this major will allow students to have access to marketable jobs that require a bachelor's degree in non-specific fields. No additional resources will be required, and the major will be part of an existing degree program. So no action from the board is required. The proposal was just shared to us for informational purposes. After that, we heard about academic programs and faculty workload from Elizabeth Oldmixon, Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs and Curriculum, and Provost Coltman. They provided us an overview of the curriculum process and instructional faculty workload at JMU. Aligned with the principles of academic freedom, curriculum is vested with the faculty. This is also an area where shared governance is evident. Administration work with faculty on the back end processes to instantiate curriculum. And moreover, administrators and board members ensure that the curriculum aligns with JMU's strategic priorities and the priorities of the Commonwealth. Faculty work is comprised of teaching, research, and service. While ensuring curricular needs are met, faculty assignments over time ideally allow for flexibility and variability in meeting the strategic priorities and enhancing faculty career growth. And then lastly, we heard from our Faculty Senate Speaker, Kathy Ott-Walter. She provided her speaker's report and shared a synopsis of the December and January Senate meetings, the Faculty Senate Committee work, the continued conversations around inclement weather communication, and the continued collaboration between faculty and administration to improve and streamline procedures and processes. She has received some positive feedback from the visits. I think there's one left, and that's me, Modern Dance, which I will not be participating. I will be observing. The speaker reported that 17 faculty mini grants were awarded by the Faculty Senate, totaling $56,000. The research, just to give you a little sampling of some of the research, ranged from a multimodal professional development for early childhood teachers in Uzbekistan to student research, where students connect with members from the local poultry industry to study respiratory diseases. She concluded her report highlighting recent faculty achievements and the event kicking off the Innovation Center for Youth Justice, which is supported by the Commonwealth of Virginia and is a collaboration between the Justice Studies and Social Work departments and the Robert F. Kennedy National Resource Center for Juvenile Justice. And I think, as all of you in your committees, we ended with a brief reminder that we're always open to feedback on subjects of interest for meetings, of which that informed quite a few of the topics of our meeting yesterday. So with that, hold on, let me get my proper wording here, Madam Rector. I move the report of the Academic Excellence Committee be accepted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So any discussion? I'm going to go first. I'm going to go first because I get to.
Did you?
So- But you can be second.
Thank you.
So first, I'm really grateful that John Robbenberger did not play with your chair while you were
Yes,
giving your
appreciate
report.
that. Thank
But
you.
more importantly, I did take advantage of attending a class yesterday and really enjoyed it. I was on time and I behaved myself. But you're just gonna have to trust me. But I really enjoyed it. So really welcomed the opportunity and thank both Kathy and Heather. And there were 45 different professors who provided the opportunity for us to attend their class. So I really want to thank them for opening their doors to have the opportunity for having us come in and observe the classes. So thank you. I'd welcome the opportunity to do it again. I know it was work.
Can I make Chris wait for just an extra second because it's related to that? Just a reminder that we'll be doing that again in April.
Perfect.
So if you didn't get an opportunity to visit a class yesterday or today, you have a chance, and that list will be going out again. So
I
yeah.
highly encourage it. It was really fun, actually. So, all right.
Thank you. I look forward to attending a class in April. But this was an excellent meeting. I think I'm going to speak in favor of the adult degree program for just a second, but some of the numbers we were presented during the meeting with where I thought were staggering. There were 41 graduates of that program in 2019, and there's projected to be 138 this year. So it's certainly a growing program. And I think when you hear from the students that graduated from it, you understand why, how much it's impacted their lives. I think I heard the quote, "It's changed my life," right? And we also heard that people learned about it by Googling it. So it's important to remember that, right? When we're talking about university communications and marketing, that's the way that a lot of them find out about it. I know that on my social media, I'm constantly given ads about JMU's MBA and other programs. So very important. And also, again, I'm glad to hear that the Innovative Center for Youth Justice was brought up during the Faculty Senate report. I was glad to attend the launch of that program. Our centers are game changers. The research that's happening in our centers are talked a lot about in different circles in Richmond and other places. So you all have heard me say this before, but the opportunity that we get to do research on an undergraduate level is not common around the country. So remember that when we're thinking about our centers, Innovative Center for Youth Justice, the Center for Civic Engagement, and the others.
Mr. White.
At the risk of being redundant, I saw something at the Academic Excellence Committee that I just want to highlight. A member of the provost's office looked out and saw a problem, and that problem was this wealth of students who get a whole bunch of units but don't graduate, and got obsessive over it and said, "What's going on here?" and dug into it and got comparables from other colleges and universities to address that problem and create a system so that our kids or the students of JMU who go that far can go all the way and get a job. Every college doesn't do that. That is really awesome. Every college doesn't have somebody in the office of the provost who will see that string on the sweater and pull it. And we did. And I just want to highlight that because we're going to be talking about, what makes JMU JMU. And that's part of it, because that new degree program that we don't have to approve, that's really special to address a problem that a lot of colleges and universities don't even look into.
Madam Chair, I'd like to speak to that as well. I believe it's called a general studies degree. As somebody who was 2 years into an English degree and took a May session course in political science and called their father and said, "I'm switching my major to political science." And the father says, "No, you're not, because I've already paid for 2 years of an English degree. I wish this program were in existence then." I think, when you have students who are lost, I'm so glad that we had somebody who dedicated their time to finding a path forward. Those 120 students would have never looked back at their JMU experience as a positive thing had they not had some help finding that path forward. And I also liked how the program is written with advisors to help them utilize whatever they had studied up to that point and blend it with the things that they could succeed in moving forward, not just pushing that away and starting over because it's just not feasibly or financially possible for so many students. So to Jack's, very, very impressive.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Any further comment? All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? So moved. Thank you very much, Laura. Next up, advancement engagement, Mr. Stolfus.
Thank you, Madam Rector. The Advancements and Engagement Committee heard the following reports yesterday. First was the fundraising report. Dylan Thomas gave a recap on the November fund drive Digging Dukes on the which was an event reported and which resulted in up $450,000 that was created and 1,800 total donors. Dylan further stated that athletics has received $2.5 million in gifts for the current fiscal year. Cynthia Klein reported that in the fiscal year 24, $14.5 million has thus far been donated to the university-wide. Next was Dr. Nick Langridge's vice president's report. Dr. Langridge shared that we successfully completed fundraising for the new Bluestone Seed Fund and that a new private giving component for the health and behavioral studies expansion has begun. He went on to describe successful elements of recent enrollment marketing campaigns. Also, the drive for big ideas will conclude on March 8th, 2024. Next was principal giving. We learned from Miriam Bradley she gave an overview rather on principal giving as a critical component of our fundraising efforts, explaining that the significant role of principal gifts, the significant role of principal gifts in JMU's next comprehensive campaign. In the prior Unleashed campaign, principal gifts, such as those from the Reddicks and Holland Yates families, represent a significant and transformational giving that will be critical to realizing JMU's aspirations and goals. Next was a very encouraging report on the next campaign. Sheila Smith shared that through the RFP process, we have now selected BWF as the next campaign consulting company. BWF, a thought leader in university philanthropy, will coordinate our feasibility and planning studies. The BWF team will be led by BWF Associate Vice President Nick Perlick. Please, everyone, mark your calendars for next Thursday, February 22nd. This is Giving Day. The Office of Annual Giving and partners across campus will present JMU's 7th Giving Day next Thursday. Primary goal is to engage 3,000 donors and enrich funds that support academics, scholarships, and core programs. Finally, we went into closed session and a motion was made and was approved by the committee. Madam Rector, I move that this report of the Advancement Committee be accepted.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposition? So moved. Thank you very much. Our next report is athletics. Mr. Donlin,
The athletics committee heard the following reports at the meeting on Thursday, February 15th. It started with an athletics update from Jeff Bourne. I'm gonna warn everyone, this is a long update because of how many successful things are happening in the athletic department right now. And I trust you'll agree, the athletics department's hitting on all cylinders. JMU teams have compiled 107, 58, and 13 cumulative records for a almost 64% winning percentage. At the completion of fall sports, JMU stood in first in the standings for the Bubas Cup, which is awarded by the Sun Belt to the best overall institution for competitive success as measured by Sun Belt sponsored sports. With an at-large NCAA bids difficult for mid-major schools, JMU was one of only 2 schools in the country to earn at-large spots for men's soccer, women's soccer, and volleyball in the fall. JMU was the only school to participate in all 3 tournaments while also reaching an FBS bowl game. So I just think that's amazing. Football finished at 11-2 and finished first place in the Sun Belt at 7-1. While ineligible for a bowl selection based on full FBS standards and ineligible for the Sun Belt title game, JMU did earn a bowl opportunity as an alternate based upon insufficient eligible teams. The Dukes were selected to the Lockheed Martin Armed Services Bowl in Fort Worth. Also, we had a discussion about the ESPN game day that came, I guess it was about a week or a week and a half after our November meeting, and how that was very successful and increased the exposure for the school in all sports. Men's soccer went 10-5-5 start and finished 4th in the Sun Belt and earned an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. While women's soccer finished 9-5-8 and earned an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2015. Volleyball finished 21-10 advanced to the final of the Sun Belt Championship, and earned the program's first at-large bid to the NCAA championship in program history. Cross country placed second in the Sun Belt Championship. Men's basketball sits at 23-3 overall and 10-3 in the Sun Belt. JMU has already tied the regular season wins record at 22 and favored to top the overall program record for wins of 24. So that should happen in the next week or 10 days, which is really exciting. Women's basketball sits at 17-9 overall and 9-4 in the Sun Belt. Swimming and diving went 4-3 in dual meets and enters its first Sun Belt championship this weekend. Softball opens its season with a 4-1 record in the first weekend, while lacrosse opened the season taking down number 3 North Carolina in overtime, and that was last weekend. I know a lot of people were excited about that. At the Sun Belt's Fall Honors Banquet, JMU earned the league's top academic honors for the second year in a row, with the student athlete graduation rate for the highest student athlete graduation rate among Sun Belt schools. Again, that shows you the completeness of the program. JMU Athletics announced its 2024 Hall of Fame class, which will take place on Friday, September 6th of this year at the Atlantic Union Center. The 2024 class will include softball pitcher Meredith Phelps Rowland, women's basketball head coach Betty James, women's soccer forward and midfielder Annie Lowry Young, two-sport athlete Julie Martinez Bowles, football head coach Mickey Matthews, and baseball infielder and outfielder Greg Miller. The class will also include the 4th team to be inducted into the JMU Athletics Hall of Fame, as the 2004 football national championship team will be recognized. Again, that's September 6th. I believe that's before the first home football game, if I'm correct on that. Next, and again, that was the report from Mr. Bourne, just incredible. Next, we had the HR update with staff vacancies. Recent legislation passed based upon work completed by the NCAA Transformation Committee requires institutions to provide consensus-based care, education, and services to its student athletes. This emphasis on care includes having appropriate staff in place to support student athletes. JMU has been without 2 key full-time vacancies since July 2023 in the area of integrated health, chief medical officer, and associate AD for integrated health and sports performance. While both positions have been posted and actively recruited, and the department has been unsuccessful with hiring a candidate so far, salary competitiveness and required qualifications have made the recruitment process challenging. Athletics has partnered with Renaissance Search and Consulting to assist with the associate AD search. The athletics training staff continues to be short-staffed. This department has been creative in finding ways to provide coverage. However, expects to continue to see retention challenges in this area. We had a discussion at this point about just all of the challenges to, find and recruit athletic trainers. And it's something that has been reported on in past meetings. And I know it's a real challenge for the department. Effective August 1st, 2024, the NCAA will require institutions to sign a form acknowledging that they are in compliance with consensus-based guidance supporting student athlete health, safety, and performance. This attestation will begin for the 24-25 academic year, and JMU will be required to sign its first form in November of 25. Then the next report was the Intercollegiate Athletics Program Report. Committee members were provided the 2023 Intercollegiate Athletics Program Report, which referenced JMU's revenues and expenditures. For fiscal year 23, JMU's percentage was 55.4, slightly above the 55 threshold standard set forth by the Cox Bill for all Division 1A institutions. When JMU transitioned to the Sun Belt Conference, its threshold dropped from 70 to 55%. The General Assembly has allowed for a 5-year transition to meet this newly defined 55% threshold, and we made it in the first couple of years, which is great. The audit approved the university's reporting processes of the data and yielded no management recommendations for the university. The next report was the student athlete disciplinary report. Committee members were provided a summary of the judicial violations, sanctions, and disciplinary actions incurred by student athletes for 2022-2023. The report referenced that in addition to sanctions and disciplinary actions imposed by the court system and JMU's Office of Student Accountability, JMU coaches have the autonomy to enforce additional penalties, including removal from the team, scholarship reductions, additional community service obligations, program suspensions, scrimmage suspensions, and team program strikes. The report I thought was very favorable and had been decreasing over time over the last 4 years. So I thought that was a great report. The next report we heard was the Atlantic Union Broadcast Control Room. The new broadcast control room in the Atlantic Union Bank Center debuted in fall of 2023 after a long preparation process, shipping delays, and navigating troubleshooting. Broadcasts were previously school produced with few standards. The arrival of the SEC, Big Ten, and ACC networks brought affiliation with ESPN and new standards. Broadcast production further expanded with ESPN Plus. JMU recognized once it announced its membership in the Sun Belt that an expanded solution was needed. The addition of the control room for broadcast distribution exclusively to ESPN Plus, which includes the Sun Belt, the AAC, and MAC, all JMU membership conferences. The control room allows for future growth and partnership between athletics and the university's School of Media and Arts Design. The infrastructure of the control room will allow JMU to grow its fiber connectivity in the future, which will increase quality and improve standards, providing additional university exposure on the national stage. I think many of us have seen, and various times our sports have been on television. I think broadcasting is amazing. I think everything in the Atlantic Union you saw last night's amazing. So I think it's been great. Our last report was a fundraising update by Scooter Renken. The Diggin' Dukes campaign, the first ever sport-specific day of giving held on November 28, 2024, was a huge success, bringing in almost $450,000 and included 1,796 donors, 643 of which were first-time donors. As of January 17th, 2024, well, going back to that, one interesting point was of the sports that got the most participation, women's lacrosse finished 1 and football was 2. And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
And women's lacrosse did a great job, advertising for the fundraising day. So I thought that was really interesting. As of January 17th, 2024, total athletic fundraising is currently at $2.5 million, which is slightly ahead at this time last year. The annual fund, which consists of Proud and True gifts and Duke Club seat contribution, is at $1.4 million, 29% of the aspirational goal of $4.8 million. The donor count is currently at 4,866, up from 1,700 donors from last year. The Duke Club has an aspirational goal of securing 6,000 donors in the fiscal year 2024. 2024 Duke Club football renewal season is currently underway and has received tremendous traction. JMU Giving Day is, I guess that's next Thursday, February 22nd. Many gifts made that day are in the form of ticket renewal. The last item on the agenda was Mr. Bourne talking about what we could have on future agenda items for consideration. And the committee told him the main future agenda item will be celebrating him at his last meeting in April. So there'll be other additional items too, but that was front and center for the meeting in April.
Which I'm sure he was very happy to hear.
Yes. Madam Rector, I move to accept the report of the athletic committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion about this report? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? So moved. Next up, audit risk and compliance.
Thank you, Madam Rector. The audit committee heard the following report on February 15th. Becky Holmes provided an annual update from the compliance committee, and Brad Barnett, the associate vice president for access enrollment management, and Rick Gardner, senior associate director for financial aid and scholarships, discussed priorities for 2024, which include website changes to include a cost of attendance calculator to meet the consumer information requirements, and implementation of the Adobe sign to protect covered data in compliance with the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act safeguards rule. And just a personal kudos to both of them. The changes that were made are going to increase accessibility, but also security of important things like tax returns that are submitted to the university. The internal audit work plan status report was reviewed. JMU policy 1601, the auditing program charter, was reviewed and approved by the committee as required annually. The committee went into closed session to review and discuss internal audit reports issued since the last meeting, and the committee adjourned at 4:05 p.m. Madam Rector, I move the report of the audit committee be accepted.
Very much. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion regarding this report? All right, all those in favor? Any opposition? So moved. Next, finance and physical development, Mr. Berger.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Finance and Physical Development Committee heard the following reports at the meeting on Thursday, February 15th, 2024. Tawana Moore gave the Administration and Finance Divisional update. The Administration and Financial Division update included a review of the record-setting 30th anniversary game day at JMU and an update about JMU being the first in the country to go live with Salesforce CRM for advising and student success. In addition, the committee discussed the fiscal year 25 revenue and cost factors that must be considered when calculating proposed tuition rates for board approval in April. These factors include the strategic plan, reallocations, increases in compensation and benefits, unfunded mandates, state funding levels, enrollment, inflation, and utility costs. Tawana then went through the efficiency review. The efficiency review committee unanimously selected Ben Kennedy and Associates to conduct the review of the university. The kickoff meeting is scheduled for February 27th, 2024. Then Mark Angel was up for the financial review. The university's revenue and expenditures were appropriate for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. Then went into an annual investment review, and the university's investment portfolio as of December 31st, 2023 was presented for review. Then Mr. Craig Short went through the Central Shenandoah's Planning District Committee's Hazard Mitigation Plan Regional Plan.
Well done.
Can I say that one?
More fluently.
More fluent. The Central Shenandoah's Planning District Commission's Hazard Mitigation Plan Regional Plan,
Thanks.
which included representatives from JMU and its development, is intended to address natural hazards, risks, and vulnerable areas in the Central Shenandoah region, and includes strategies to reduce or eliminate risks and prioritizes potential mitigation projects for various threats like flooding, dam failure, drought, hurricanes, and severe winter weather. Although the adoption of the plan neither restricts nor commits JMU to complete any activities, it does provide a basis for eligibility for certain FEMA-funded grants through the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. The university has applied for a $2.3 million grant that provides funding for the flood mitigation work on the stream channel directly behind the Godwin Transit Center and Bridgeforth Stadium. Madam Rector, on motion from the committee, I move that the plan be adopted by the full board.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding this motion? So I would just like to underscore that a grant has been applied for and the acceptance of this motion is required to move that grant process further. So really the work associated with the plan has been done. This is getting funding to support having done that work. Just to summarize exactly what you just said.
Madam Rector,
Yes.
I wonder if we could have John repeat that title one.
I'm expecting that one, John, please.
I don't think it's possible.
Nicely done. All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? So moved.
To continue, Diane Stamp and Caitlin Reed went through the governor's budget. An update on Governor Youngkin's December proposed 2024 to 2026 state budget for higher education was presented. In addition, a report on the status of institutional funding and biennial budget requests was provided. While the 2024 General Assembly reached the crossover point on February 13th, the budget report will not be released until Sunday, February 18th. A full report on the General Assembly will be given later in this meeting. Lastly, Mr. Craig Short gave a dining services overview. JMU Dining employs over 600 students and 500 members of the Harrisonburg community and will serve over 5 million meals in 2024. The program has been recognized in the Princeton's Review's top 20 for best campus food for over 20 years. 92% of survey respondents rated their overall experience with JMU Dining as either excellent or good, compared to 52% in the region and 59% nationally. So, bravo to the group. Madam Rector, I move the report of the Finance and Physical Development Committee be accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Rothenberger. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion regarding this report? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? So moved. Our next report is the Governance Committee. Mr. White.
All right, the Governance Committee discussed the following items at our meeting yesterday. We talked about board self-evaluation. So the self-evaluation is conducted every 2 years, ordinarily in the second year of the rector's term, which is where we are right now. The self-evaluation is actually two-tiered. We as board members evaluate ourselves individually, but we also evaluate the efficacy of the board. And so every board member is going to receive by email a curated Qualtrics survey to complete regarding the work of the board. That survey is going to be reviewed and shared with the board, not just in report fashion, but also for purposes of discussion so that we can develop during our April retreat. More to follow on that. Now, we also discussed the role of the board secretary. That conversation was in light of being consistent with the bylaws. But also to consider the desires of the board members in receiving appropriate support from the board secretary, as we have been in coordination with the university administration. And so that conversation was meaningful right now at the crossroads that we're going to be at, because somebody told the current board secretary that she could resign. Retire. Yeah, I'm sorry, retire. I think dissents on that decision are still being heard, but that's where things stand now. And now for the board retreat. All right, coming up, we have our board retreat, and this is going to be one for the ages. For context, the university has its strategic plan, but this retreat will enable this board to breathe into the university's vision. And so there are different movements of this retreat that's coming up. One is we are going to get a report from EAB, who is a highly capable higher education consulting firm who collects data and information from institutions of higher education to report back to us on trends so that we can have that situational awareness. But that is not going to be the entirety of the retreat. That's going to be contextual, it's going to be informative, and it's stuff that we ought to know. The center of gravity of this retreat is for us as a board to look at who JMU is and what JMU ought to be, can be, will be, with a deliverable of having a solid articulation of answers to those questions. And so I have homework for all of the board members between now and the upcoming board retreat. All of the board members are asked to inquire with their respective networks, neighbors, friends, colleagues, fellow alumni, as well as folks not associated with JMU, and ask what is their perception of JMU. Now, I'm going to tell you now questions that I want you to ask, but don't feel that you have to commit this to memory, because this homework assignment is going to be issued by email, and it's something that you have to really bring a tangible response to when we get together for our board retreat. Ask these questions. When I say JMU, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Ask that question. Separately, what do you believe JMU excels at? What is JMU known for? And finally, how would you describe the JMU experience and culture? Okay, and again, you don't have to commit that to memory, but the point is this: we want everybody to come back having asked those same questions so that we can compare apples to apples what is out there and bring that in line with what our responses are, so that we can have a robust discussion of where JMU is and have a visionary discussion on where we'd like JMU to be. All right. Although we are an academic institution, I'm the only one who gets to give homework. And again, these are going to be emailed to you, so don't forget to do your homework. Madam Rector, I move the report of the governance committee be accepted.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
You, any discussion? Questions about the homework assignment? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? So moved. Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, student affairs.
Great, thank you so much. The Student Affairs Committee heard the following reports on February 15th, yesterday. First of all, Dr. Tim Miller is working on the Student Affairs Strategic Plan, which will be linked to President Alger's goals for the JMU. And we heard some preliminary reports on that. We have 4 different areas that I've mentioned before: student learning and development, belonging, health and well-being, and being the best place to work. Each one of the board members have agreed to be an advisor to one of those sections of the Student Affairs Strategic Plan. There was a discussion on how we could involve all the board members in that, and so we'll be more things coming forward. Moving on to the Student Government Association report, Nick Pazin really focuses on 3 areas: campus unity, enhancing civic engagement, and internal support. And he shared how these align with the Student Affairs Strategic Plan, which we really appreciate. I don't know if Nick is here today, but he did a great job. He also gave an update on current initiatives within the SGA, including the contingency fund, grant expenditures, bills that were in development, and being the SGA bills and events and opportunities in Richmond. We moved on to the student representative report from Abby Canella, and she really did a nice job of reflecting on the experience on the campus and how many students really do feel connected. I think she also did a little Instagram afterwards. Is that right? For our meeting, she does it each time. She also shared reports from the President's Council and shared a desire to support the next student representative in her plan for, asking those potential candidates to come to this meeting or other meetings to get a flavor of what we do. Then we moved on to the accessibility and belonging spotlight. And first of all, I'd like to say that Laura Major said that she felt like the campus was very accessible, right? No problem.
That's been so wonderful.
It's been wonderful. So she's a firsthand comment. A couple of facts that I thought were interesting yesterday that Dr. Miller shared. 20% of our students identify as having some type of color, other than white, basic white. And I thought that the 20% was really impressive. 60% of our students say they have some type of religious affiliation. So I thought that was also impressive. And then 2,173 students have asked for accommodation and have registered with the Office of Disability and Belonging. So it tells you that each person does feel like they're connected to the school. We had a panel discussion. We ended with a panel discussion of students, which we do every time. And this time we had representatives from the Valor, I guess it was the JMU Valor. Also just a SOGI representative. There was one from the religious area, and then 2 other students. And it was really fascinating. And I think what stuck out with me, the lady that spoke from the military had been in the military for 3 years and then came back to JMU. And then she's going to be commissioned. And just her story was pretty impressive. A level of maturity I know I never had at that young age. And all of them said that having the Office of Disability and Belonging have really been meaningful to them. And they shared their story of what meant a lot to them as well. It was a powerful student panel, so maybe other members after this report might want to make comments on it. Then I'm going to see, Dr. Miller closed with highlights of the signature programs from different areas and introduced new initiatives. One thing I really do appreciate about Dr. Miller is he sincerely wants our input and how he can organize student affairs. And he gave us, and I loved it because it was in like business degree. So I'm giving him credit for this. He took like the academic report and tied it up into, here's our goal, here's our measures of success. He's going to come up with baseline and then what his target is for 3 years, and then who's accountable for it. And that just was music to the board members' ears, don't you think? So he came up with the first plan was for University Health Center. I think there's like 13 or 14 of these. And we went through that as a sample, and that was very, very helpful. So with that, one last comment. I wanted to just share a quote that from one of the students that we had in our packet from Jake Nadler, who's 20 in the class of 24. I personally believe that the Valor staff, advisors, family, and resource center has created an invaluable space for all military connected persons to find a home, to make lifelong bonds with others who walk similar experiences. I thought that was a pretty powerful testimony. Madam Rector, I move that the report of the Student Affairs Committee be accepted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Further comments? All right, with that, all those in favor? Any opposition? So before moving on to the president's report, I just quickly want to say, you go ahead, it will only take me a second. I do continue to greatly appreciate that serving as committee chairs requires a different level of outside engagement and support and time. So I just wanted to again call out that I appreciate all you taking the time, focus and energy to continue to commit to those roles. So thank you. And with that, we'll move to the president's report. President Alger.
Thank you, Madam Rector. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's great to be with you all. And today I'm going to be highlighting some of the activities and events since our last board meeting. As you've gotten a sense from these committee reports, there is a lot happening across James Madison University. So, okay, next slide, Don. So starting with major university events, just since our last meeting, of course, we had our December commencement, very meaningful ceremony where our alum Jennifer Park Stout talked about finding her passion at James Madison University. It's just a wonderful ceremony that reminds us of why we're all here. We had Martin Luther King week once again in January, and of course, it had to be a snow day when we had a speaker come all the way from Seattle. But nevertheless, Dr. Brenda Salter McNeil gave a wonderful talk using the Good Samaritan parable, among others, and we were able to sort of broadcast that to our community since folks couldn't come in person that day. February 6th, we had a tremendous legislative reception in Richmond. Many of you were there, so thank you so much for representing JMU. I think it was one of our most successful events ever in Richmond. We had a lot of members of the General Assembly who joined us for that, so really appreciate the turnout. And then this was a really special event that, again, some of you were at, the Old School Alumni Black History Month event. This year, they celebrated a couple of honorees. One was the former member and vice rector of the board, Deborah Tompkins Johnson, who has served this university in so many capacities. And so she had family members there. It was a great tribute to her service at JMU. And also Donna Harper, thinking ahead towards her retirement, although it sounds like Jack may reverse that for us, so we're set there. But in any event, they really wanted to thank and acknowledge Donna for all the work that she has done in providing access and opportunity for students. So thank you, Donna, and also Deborah, who's not here with us, but many of you know Deborah. And thank you, so many of you, for coming to these events. Okay. Turning to admissions, it's that time of year, right? Students have been applying to colleges, have heard back, just tremendous numbers here. And it's worth noting when you look at these increases in applications, this is in many ways counter to a lot of the national trends, right? Particularly for a lot of public universities and places like the Shenandoah Valley, many of them across the country are really struggling to fill their classes with the demographic shifts, the so-called enrollment cliff that many of you have heard about. But you see here again, total undergraduate applications over 40,000 this year. That's a tremendous number. And if you look at it, a 7% increase over last year and compared all the way back to 2021, a 67.5% increase. So a great deal of interest in the university. You see there the demographics again of the applicants. Men, we're still behind here. This has been true for a number of years now, but you see that. And this is, of course, a pattern nationwide, as you probably know. But some exciting numbers here. You look at very robust numbers of applicants from out of state, which reflects the fact that the university is recognized as a national research university. A lot of first-generation students from historically underrepresented groups, international applicants recovering after COVID, which is good to see. Now, this next one, 53 states and US territories. Who has friends in South Dakota? Please help us out there. I'm a perfectionist. I like 100%. So if we can get some applicants from South Dakota, please help us out. But really, really healthy numbers across the board. You see transfer applications already over 800, and those continue to come in. One thing I did want to mention, though, that is a big challenge this year, and you've probably read about this in newspapers and in the media. The federal financial aid form, the FAFSA, was supposed to be quote unquote simplified this year, right? But the rollout has been very, very difficult and has been quite delayed. And the reason this is important to all of us is what it means is that for students who are deciding about college for fall of 2024, if you're someone that's going to need financial aid, you don't know exactly what you're going to be eligible for until a much later date than has typically been the case. And so as we try to convert all these wonderful applicants and people who've been admitted into actually matriculating at JMU, students who have financial aid needs are going to have to wait to get information. Now, our financial aid office has really been on top of this, communicating with students about what to expect, how to help them, but it is a significant challenge that we will be facing. And again, we're not in this alone. Every college in the country is facing this challenge. Donna, is there anything that you wanted to add on that?
No, we're just trying to communicate regularly with the folks so that they know that we're aware of the situation and what's happening. We just got a letter day before yesterday, I think, from the Secretary of Education, and he indicated that they're also working very hard. We still hope to potentially get the FAFSAs by the middle of March. They have agreed to relieve some of the things we have to do, like verification of financial aid, and they're going to lessen the regulations on that so that once we get the FAFSAs, we can move more quickly to be able to get information out to students. Normally, we like to get it out to students before they come for choices. That helps to eliminate a lot of questions. We won't be able to do that this year, but we'll have a lot of people at choices from our financial aid office to help answer their questions. It will still be our goal to potentially get information to them by the middle of April, so that they still will have a chance to actually look and make that comparison. We've also, though, updated our net calculator on the webpage that will take some of this into consideration, so they can at least get some estimate of what it might be for them to be able to compare.
Thank you, Donna. Before I move on, are there any questions or comments for Donna on that? I wanted to make sure that we took a moment on that. All right, well, thank you. And Donna, thank you and the team. You can imagine for the financial aid office what a challenge this is. So thanks to Brad. I don't know if Brad Barnett is here, but thank you to him and the team. Okay. Now, John Lynch covered the athletics highlights really well, so I won't repeat all of this, but I did want to just mention a couple of things here. On ESPN Game Day, which I know, again, some of you had the opportunity to participate in, this is the third time we have hosted ESPN Game Day. We are the only non-Power 5 school to have ever done that. So that really says something about the quality of the JMU athletics program. And the ESPN folks love it. They'd love to come back again. So Tawana and your team, don't rest too much, Tawana, because you know they may be coming back. You heard John mention the success right now of some of our teams, including women's lacrosse, which, by the way, also had a big win over Virginia Tech this week. They are ranked number 3 in the country. So think about that, with all the competition in the sport like that, to be ranked 3rd in the country, a really potential for a really special season with that team. And by the way, just a late addition last night, I got a message in terms of our women's swim and dive team that they had received the Scholar All-America Award from the College Swimming and Diving Coaches Association of America. And that team right now, this weekend, is competing in the Sun Belt Championship, and they actually have a big lead. They are in first place with a couple of days of competition left. So Jeff, hats off to you and the team. There's a reason why people talk about the everything school, because it really reflects that idea of excellence across the board in many different areas. Turning to another really important issue, you know that I'm always going to mention civic engagement in one way, shape, or form, because this is so important to our university. Some highlights here: our Governor's Fellows program, which we participate in and try to get students to get to be in the governor's office each year. We now have that endowment being endowed rather, the funds for that program so that students will be able to participate going forward. So we're really excited to have reached that goal. Thinking about interdisciplinary approaches to issues, we have a neat program coming up on civic engagement in the arts with one of our own alums, actress Whitney Rice from Jury Duty. I haven't seen Jury Duty, but it's a series on Amazon Prime that some of you may know. So she will be here on March 5th to talk with our students. The Madison Center for Civic Engagement, where is David? David Kirkpatrick, are you here somewhere? Oh, there he is in the back. David Kirkpatrick, of course, you know, in addition to being chief of staff, has provided tremendous leadership with his team with the Madison Center. One of the things they have done is with all of our incoming first year and transfer students to have as part of orientation a session on free speech and free expression. So we really appreciate helping students to understand the importance of these issues in higher education and in our society. Another neat project the Madison Center is involved with is this Veterans History Project, which will have an official launch on April 25th. You see, it's an interesting partnership with the Library of Congress, our office, Congressman Ben Klein, Department of History, JMU Libraries, the Madison Center, and JMU Valor, the program that you all know for our veterans and military-affiliated folks. So that is going to celebrate veteran stories. And so we're really excited to be able to play a key national role on that issue going forward. And coming up, Common Good in the Commonwealth, we will have Secretary of Education Amy Guadera with us in April to speak with our university community. Really excited to have Amy joining us. Turning to some related academic updates, speaking of civic engagement, you'll see we have a civic leadership minor that we are going to be launching this fall, and it will involve all 8 of our colleges. And if you look at these different tracks, you know, foundations of civic leadership, I like this next one, civic science and technology, and then practicing community civic leadership. These will be great opportunities for our students. And it will certainly reflect the strategic plan of JMU in terms of high impact learning, because every student you see is going to complete an internship, some sort of research, or a portfolio project related to civic leadership. So really excited to launch this minor. And again, thanks to David and many colleagues for bringing that to fruition. Another program some of you have been involved with and helped us with, and this has been a long slog, but we got approval in Chev for the EDD, a doctorate in education. These are not easy programs to get approved. It's a long process. We are now waiting for this sort of external review component of that process, but the good news is it was approved by the relevant committee at Chev, thanks to Dean Mark Lesperance and his team from the College of Education. Speaking of the College of Education, another really exciting development you've been hearing about for the last couple of years, at least now, is the JMU Lab School, which is called the Lab School for Innovation and Career Exploration. On January 25th, another important date for us, the Virginia State Board of Education unanimously recommended full approval for the Lab School. You see, it's a partnership with us, the Rockingham County Public Schools, and also Blue Ridge Community College. And what I think is really exciting about this doesn't require building new building, right? It's working within the existing Rockingham County Public Schools, but it will have that emphasis on career pathways and experiential learning. And in 11th and 12th grade, students will have options to take classes for either college credit or dual enrollment. We will get $12.3 million to fund this program so that it's sustainable. And of course, Governor Youngkin and his team were very excited to get this one to the finish line. So this will be launching this fall. I don't know if Mark is here. Is Mark here? I don't see him this morning, but I really want to thank him and his team. This required a lot of work on behalf of many people to pull this together with all the moving parts to get the approval. So we're really excited about the Lab School. Next, I want to give an example of what JMU does at its very best in terms of teaching. You all know that we have very creative and innovative faculty here, and some of you experienced that in your class visits. So this particular class on hacking for diplomacy is an example of an interdisciplinary course It involved multiple faculty members, as you'll see in a moment. And it's a great example of engaged learning and problem solving, where there's no textbook with the answer in the back, right? And so what we did is we had a team taught class with students from different disciplines that were working in particular with the US State Department on some real world problems. And so what they did is they were working on diplomatic security services with the State Department, students from 3 different disciplines: data, math, and statistics, writing, rhetoric, and technical communication, and political science, on 5 different projects for the State Department that were mission critical for ensuring the security of thousands of State Department personnel, the facilities, and assets all across the world. So basically, some important national security issues that these students got to work on. They included non-lethal deterrent systems, an inventory tracking system that prevents the loss of $700,000 in secure assets, detection system for chemical, radioactive, and biological threats at embassies. Think about some of the challenges our embassies have faced recently. You've probably read about that. A policy upgrade for the Foreign Affairs Manual for new visual surveillance systems, a life cycling system for X-ray and explosive detective machines all over the world. Those were the projects that these students worked on. So think about that as these are undergraduate students. They spent 4 hours, as I understand it, sharing their solutions with members of the State Department. All these divisions were represented, and their directors were there, as you see up on the screen. And I'd like to acknowledge our faculty members. Bernie Kousler from Political Science. Bernie, would you stand? Paula Nelson, would you stand, from Math and Statistics? And Sean McCarthy. Some of you have seen Sean before. He's done a lot of work with the X Labs. So a team taught course, 3 very different disciplines that came together working with the State Department, literally saving the State Department and our country a lot of money, but also coming up with really innovative solutions to real world problems that our country faces. Can we thank all of them? Team, did I get it mostly right? Is there anything? Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for that creative example of what students learn at JMU. Doesn't it make you want to go back to college when you think about that kind of experience for students working in teams on those types of issues? All right. Another academic update that I wanted to share. As you all know, we're trying to serve students. You heard about the adult degree program, meet them where they are in a variety of ways, and that includes online education. And so it's interesting to note here in US News, several of our online programs now ranked in the top 100 nationally, starting with that MBA program at number 18, and that's a really crowded marketplace. So to be number 18 is just terrific. MBA for veterans, number 34. Number 41 for our Masters in Computer Information Technology, number 97 for the Masters in Nursing program, and then other graduate programs that US News has recognized in the top 100 nationally. Audiology, speech language pathology, the physician assistant program, occupational therapy, fine arts, and nursing. Those are all in the top 100. And just look at that variety, right, of highly ranked programs across JMU. So kudos again to our faculty for those very innovative programs. Okay. Another issue, speaking of technology and looking ahead, we have a task force, as you may recall, working on artificial intelligence and its impact on higher education. And there are 4 different working groups that you see there that have been thinking about how artificial intelligence will impact not just teaching and learning, but also the services that we offer and the way that we interact with people on and off campus. So there are a lot of not just challenges, for example, with ChatGPT, but also opportunities going forward to use artificial intelligence to help us to improve our work. So we had the 4 different working groups. My understanding is that next week we will have our preliminary report up on the Presidential Initiatives website, so you can all see it. But we're looking forward to hearing from those working groups. First, they developed questions to help us to think about, and now they're developing answers to those questions, in part through working with alumni who are experts in the field. So we're really grateful to that team and that task force. Centennial and Valley Scholars. I just wanted to say a word here. These are, of course, first generation students at James Madison University. And one of the examples of how we're trying to enrich and transform the lives of these students. Over the winter, they had a chance to do a study abroad trip to the Dominican Republic. We had 15 students that participated. 11 of them were first generation Pell eligible. 10 were also within either Centennial or Valley Scholars. A friend of Paul Holland and Linda Yates, names that you know well from Holland Yates Hall, helped to fund this trip for our students, and we're really grateful to Hank Heath from the class of '82. And thinking about the Centennial and Valley Scholars, look at those numbers, 84 of those students being named to the deans and presidents lists in the fall. That is tremendous for these first generation students who face so many obstacles. And really good news, but also reflects the challenges in our society, that the Centennial Scholars Program has received over 1,000 applications for next year. So that tells us there are a lot of students who have significant financial need, but also students whose lives can be transformed here at JMU. Yeah. Now, speaking of transformation, this is a really exciting gift that I need to bring to your attention. A really milestone gift for scholarships at JMU. So Colonel Frances Weir, in her estate, left us approximately $6 million for a scholarship endowment. That's the largest cash gift to date received by the university and the largest gift in our history for scholarships. So who is this Colonel Frances Weir? So you see, she was a Madison College alum from the class of 1949 in business education. Where is Nick? Nick reported she was 4'11". Is that right, Nick? That's what we've been told. And just an amazing person. So you see here that she served in the Women's Army Corps, attended Command General Staff College, and I love this, the very first woman in American history to command a brigade-sized male unit in the U.S. Armed Forces. So an extraordinary figure. I understand, Andy, we're going to have some stories about her coming out starting immediately, right? So we're very excited to celebrate her legacy. But what a legacy to leave for JMU. $6 million for scholarships. So we're really, really excited about that gift. Finally, a couple of other quick things. When we talk about the university, you know, we talk about this idea of the engaged university being the opposite of an isolated ivory tower. The economic impact study is a great example of what that means. So we've done these studies periodically. The last one was a number of years ago now. So the Weldon Cooper Center helped us to complete a study. One of the challenges is we did it when COVID was still affecting us. So there were a lot of things that were disrupted by COVID. And yet, when you look at fiscal year 22, you see that we invested $363 million in the Harrisonburg metro area, $488 million overall in the Commonwealth, and generated $22.7 million in local tax revenue. And you see there the total effects of JMU's investment amount, $592 million in the Harrisonburg metro area, $793 million in the Commonwealth, and creating jobs in the community as well. For every faculty and staff job here, you get an additional job created in the local economy and an additional 1.25 jobs created elsewhere in the state. So that just gives you a quick snapshot. We have the full report available so that you can read more about it and understand the economic footprint and impact of the university, not just in the local community, which is really powerful. We are the largest economic engine here in this part of the Shenandoah Valley, but also across the Commonwealth. So again, hats off to everybody who's working in economic development. And you'll hear more about that actually shortly. Okay. And finally, you all know we've had leadership transitions, but also some exciting news with our new football coach, Bob Chesney, joining us from Holy Cross. Bob's been really busy, but doing a great job recruiting not only his staff, but also, of course, student athletes. I can tell you that while these next two searches are not done yet, they are going very well. Jeff has rather big shoes to fill, as you've all heard, but I can assure you we have a very strong pool of candidates. This is a very desirable job for all the reasons that you can imagine with that strength across the board. And likewise with enrollment management, that search committee has now progressed to the review stage. Great candidates nationally there. So 2 important national searches that are underway, and perhaps by the next meeting, we will have additional news on both of those fronts. So Madam Rector, that concludes my report.
Thank you, President Alger. One comment I would like to just call out, within the development space, the diversity of options for people to give back is so critically important. Hank Heath, many might not know, was a graduate of Harrisonburg High School. So his connection to the Valley Scholars Program is very personal, which is just interesting to note. So well done to make sure those things get connected, Nick and team, and their ongoing. So thank you for that. Any other comments or questions about the president's report? Just an incredible amount of successful things. I think we are earning the title of the everything's.
Thank you.
All right. So, President Alger, I think you are also going to do the introductions for our next speaker.
Yes. Should stay up there.
That's okay. You
all
can
right.
do it from your seat.
I'll do it
I
from here.
do.
All right, so just a quick introduction to the next item of business here, the Virginia Business Higher Education Council. We thought it would be important for the board to hear about the work of the VBHEC, which partners with us in higher education to give the business case for the value, relevance, and importance of higher education in Virginia. And we are very fortunate, those of us that have worked with this group for a number of years, we had Don Finley, who retired after a long stretch of service as the leader of VBHEC. I think we, do you want to take it?
Yeah. Why
Hold
don't
on
we
one
keep
second.
moving?
All right.
I think people will be back.
People will be back. Okay. So in any event, there was a search done to succeed Don Finley, and we were very, very fortunate that we found somebody who knows a thing or two about education. So I know all of you recognize the figure who is standing in front of us, who happens to be an alum of JMU, also an educator, which we're very proud of, reflecting the historic heart of this institution. And of course, someone who served in the General Assembly for how many years, Kirk?
32.
32 years. So I can't imagine a better person to lead the Virginia Business Higher Ed Council. And I can just tell you from my vantage point, Kirk has really hit the ground running. He's already met, I think, with all the campuses across the Commonwealth. He's been here to hear about what's happening at James Madison University, as well as the other campuses. We are so grateful for Kirk's leadership of VBHEC, and he's now going to update us on the great work that they're doing on our behalf. So Kirk, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. You know, I was having a great morning. I've done 6 of these, so JMU's my favorite, I have to say. Because I graduated from here, so I found my purple tie, I found my little pen. I noticed John got up and left, and I laughed. So then you're doing the big athletic report, you go to Coxville, the famous Coxville. JMU loves so much on athletics, so forgive me. I'm gonna go in anyway. And Madam Rector, I'm extremely impressed. So I've done so many of these types of things. And I'm a stickler for Robert's rules. And that was no one does that. On the second emotion, because I used to always try to explain that to the people, that if you have a committee and the majority of them vote for that, the whole reason for the second emotion is so you don't delay things. So that was beautifully done. Thank you for that. So having said that, my presentation is in a time of great political division. There's something on which Virginians of both parties strongly agree. It's time to invest in Virginia's talent. So what is VBHEC? We're a very unique organization. About 30 years ago, a group of business folks came together and said, look, higher education is sort of the driver of economics and business. If you think about it, even back then, if you want to be the top state for talent, university is going to be the key. They really don't have a great advocate if you think about it. I was in K-12 for 30 years, and there are plenty of advocates for K-12. So they came and basically said, we really need to show the business case for higher ed. So they came up with the Virginia Business Higher Education Council. So you can see our board's current membership. We're by 25 business CEOs and C-suite executives and 10 college presidents. And of course, John's on there. Happy to call out Carly Fiorina, who we just added to the board. And of course, that is a great addition for us. Next. So we're different when it comes to developing talent. Virginia is unique. So you might have seen this. The Wall Street Journal and Gallup have done a lot of polling on, so where is higher ed at? And frankly, this isn't very good news. This is sort of a national poll. So if you look up the Wall Street Journal, they've been asking these same questions since 2013, and I'll sort of summarize them. Is higher ed worth the cost, basically? And you can see 53% of the people thought yes in 2013, we're at 42% now, and we're at 56% of the people that don't think it's worth the cost. So why is that? So if you look at the often cited reasons, and I'll go down to number 3, which I think is a big one. Graduates can't find well-paying jobs in their field of study. So next. So here's the good news. I tell people all the time, luckily we're not the national viewpoint in Virginia. And by the way, this poll was interesting. We had a Republican pollster, POS, and a Democrat pollster, Frederick polls, do this. And here's what they found. In Virginia, the story is completely different. Large majorities in both parties say college education is still a good value. Now, I've done polling forever. And you can make a poll say, frankly, whatever you want to poll say. You can ask what we call softball questions. So one of the things I really wanted to see is that we were making sure that we didn't do that. And that we were asking, frankly, some questions. So look at this question very quickly. And that is, on the left, in your opinion, is having a college education still a good value, even though some college graduates have trouble finding work in their chosen field of study these days? And then you'll see on the second one, is it still a good value, even though it's become more expensive? So even with those negative pushes, you can see where we are with both Republicans and Democrats. So those are some pretty, I think, impressive figures. Next. So this, once again, sort of tests another concept, and we hear a lot about this. Are universities in Virginia well run? And once again, people will sort of tell you in a poll whether or not they don't think they're well run, sort of call this a jump ball question. And you can see that slid a little bit since 2017. But once again, people still think our universities are valuable public assets, they're well run, and they're a sound place to invest public dollars. And you can see GOP 79%, Democrats 90%. So there are tons of surveys out there, and I only picked one. This is Smart Asset. And what I really like about this survey is its ROI. So, a lot of times surveys basically rank how much money you're spending. And this one ranks completion rates and ROI. You can see the 20-year return on investment. And we've been 1 or 2 basically in those categories for 7 straight years. And you can sort of see the states that are listed. Next. So how do we use this polling data? In our Growth in Virginia campaign, one of the things we try to do is we actually take this on major election years. And those would be when you have a candidate for governor and the House of Delegates is up, or last year when all 140 seats in the General Assembly are up. And we actually go to the candidates and say, hey, here's what people are saying about higher ed. And we're actually trying to do more than that. We're trying to say some of these issues are so good, you really need to grab them for your campaign. You need to develop them and make them public policy. And so this one's interesting. Our top-ranked higher education system is a source of great pride for Virginians, whether they are Republican or Democrats. And so I always kid my colleagues and say, if you're going to make higher ed a punching bag in your campaign, probably not a good idea, okay? Because if you look, basically, are folks proud of our higher education system? You can see 80% GOP, 91% Democrats. And so that's, I think, a very good slide to sort of show this is something that you should feel very proud of yourself. So next. So competitive advantage, higher education is why Virginia wins with economic growth and job creation. So it's interesting, the president did his Weldon Cooper study on JMU specifically. We also do one sort of on the higher ed economic impact from a global state perspective. And this is a 70 or 80 page report I did in one slide. But you can see that it's very good. We just did one in 2023. Gross state product for our higher ed system is 52 billion. That's up from about 32 or 33 billion in 2017. It creates 188,000 jobs. And when you go to appropriators, they love when you can say for each dollar spent on Virginia's public higher education system, it produces $2 to the state treasury. And there's a footnote in this report that I love that basically says you're better off as a parent investing in college than you are stock market. So keep that in mind. So Virginia is the second best state for business according to CNBC because we're the #1 state for education, which we've consistently been. 93% of Virginians say it's important to invest in higher education to maintain this competitive advantage. And you can see sort of at the bottom, how important do you believe it is for Virginia's government, the General Assembly, to invest in our colleges and universities and community colleges? And once again, 91, 97 GOP Democrat, but look at very important 56%. So once again, you can ask a poll question and it's a little bit fuzzy. You can get 70%. But when you go to a candidate, what they're looking for, candidly, is an issue with intensity. The people really feel it. And this one says it's very important to 56% of the folks. So in the polling world, if you can get over 40% intensity, you've got a really good issue. So really notice the ones that really pop like that. Next. So Virginians believe talent is what sets our state apart. More than half strongly agree that broadening the talent pool through varied degrees, credentials that fit individual aspirations and abilities is the most, not a good investment, the most important investment our state can make. So you can sort of see that they're also for all of the above. They're for 4-year degrees, they're for 2-year degrees, they're for certificates. And here's why that's important, because the pendulum swings. In my career, probably at the beginning, 4-year degrees for everything. And then we got certificates for everything. That's not what people were saying. They're basically saying that that mixture of all of that is really what's going to make us the talent state. So next. By the way, I learned how to talk very fast when I talk. You can buy, I do have a really good polling brochure. I've only had some of the highlights of this, and I'm going to end up making sure you all have. So talent investments, Virginians in both parties strongly agree it's time for strategic higher ed investments. So here are 8 things that really popped out in the poll. I'm not going to do all of them. 1, invest in internships that help students pay for college and get good jobs. 2, invest in reducing the tuition burden on students and their families, which is really key. And especially if you're a first-gen kid, the affordability piece is key, and even for internships. Okay, if they're not affordable, you're going to go home and work. Okay, in that job, it's not an internship job because that's sort of what you're forced to do. And I'm going to drop down to invest in strategies to attract talent and keep students in Virginia after graduation. So next. So this is what I really wanted to get to. Virginians are especially strong in their support for expanding paid internships. And here is our really big goal, that every student who attends a Virginia college or university will have the opportunity for at least 1 paid internship. And that means about $3,000 more when you start off if it's paid. In their field of study, here's the key, without extending the time it takes to complete their degree. So you can see we sort of tested this in 2 ways. Sort of a generic question. Virginia should increase the paid internship opportunities available to students because it will help students pay for college as well as prepare them for a career. And you can see 93%. And the second one is more money for the Innovative Internship Fund. Now, when I was a speaker, and generally when you're a speaker, it depends on what you do, but you don't put bills in yourself. Now I put 1 bill in. And that was the Innovative Internship Fund. Because I just felt so strongly about we need to be creative in the space and have a state fund to incentivize internships and talent pathways. And I think it's been really successful. Next. Virginians understand that internships make college graduates more attractive to potential employers. Now, here's something I think you instinctively know. For STEM majors, internships are great. But for liberal arts majors, they're great also. And the polling data shows that if you look at it. And once again, you can see really big numbers from Republicans and Democrats, because that's your critical thinking skills. That's a lot of your leadership skills, et cetera. Next. So internships themselves are great, but talent pathways are even more important. And so I've spared you the 20 slides on talent pathways. I did one. And so before you ask the question to the respondent, you have to sort of explain what a talent pathway is. So if you look on the left, it's got 4 key elements. Colleges collaborate with businesses and other employers. You align your curriculum. Students have paid internship experiences that lead to a job. And so I'll only do one of these. Look at the top. A candidate who says we need to invest in creating more talent pathways. And the way you ask this question, are you more likely or less likely to vote for this candidate? So we asked a series of those questions, because they are especially helpful for first-gen and low-income college students who otherwise have trouble getting needed work experience and being considered for well-paying jobs. And you will see, numbers once again that are very good: 71% GOP, 90% for Democrats. Next. So we thought we'd test some ideas, and I'll cover these in a little bit more detail later. So we tested 4 ideas on, so how do you really ramp up internship? So we start with campus internship centers. And you can see that polls very well in the 70s. So a campus internship center basically would be separate from career services, and that would be its only focus. Now, you can make that work a lot of different ways, which I'll talk about in a little while, but very good numbers. Internship listing on an online portal, one-stop shop for a business, and basically students can go to access internships. Small business matching grants. So 90% of internships probably should come from small business, because that's probably how many jobs come from small business. They're key. And they don't have a lot of times HR departments. They want interns, but how do you get interns? And so this is actually an up and running program. If you don't know, it's funded through the Innovative Internship Fund. And that is for basically it's a matching grant. So if you're a small business, you can get a 1-for-1 match to pay for that internship. You can also get additional money for transportation and housing, which are probably the 2 biggest things students cite as barriers to internships. And then financial aid to help with expenses. Next. So this is a quick slide on tuition. Tuition is higher in Virginia because state support for students is so low. We rank 31 out of 50 states in state support. And whether you're Republican or Democrat, we are behind all those states. So North Carolina is a split state, Tennessee, very Republican state, Maryland, pretty Democratic state. And you can see that according to state law, we're supposed to be providing about 2/3 in funding. We're probably at about 54% right now. Now, the good news is that's up from 46% about 2 years ago. A lot of money was put into higher ed. But you can sort of see where we sit, where Virginia is as compared to North Carolina, Tennessee, Maryland, and the US. Next. So we polled that. Virginians react strongly to data showing that our state is far behind others in funding higher education, resulting in higher tuition for students and their families. And this one a little bit is interesting to me because look at independents. So independents are at 89%. And I didn't have time on the chart to show you where independents were on most of these, but they probably run 5 to 10 points behind Republicans and Democrats on most of these slides, but not on this one. And it's interesting because I asked the pollster, so who is an independent today? And he said they're a little bit different maybe than maybe 20 years ago. You sort of thought of an independent more as a moderate Republican, moderate Democrat. Still some of that. But they have sometimes they're a little bit distrustful of institutions, and that's why I think you get that 5 or 10% less. But on this one, they really pop. And so thought that was interesting when people were shown this chart. Next. Virginians agreed to solving our workforce shortages will require increasing the number of people with college degrees, the number of people with skilled trade credentials. This one, once again, just emphasized people want sort of all of the above when it comes to degrees. Next. So, all great news. One thing that VBHEC says, however, we can do better. And so you can sort of look at the blue. There's room for innovation and improvement. I think all business leaders expect that. And we are, and I think our university presidents are too, we're very much committed to accountability and performance-based models. And you'll see that in a lot of our proposals. Next. Virginians and both parties agree that our colleges and universities already outperform competitors and should work with business partners to become even more cost efficient. And so you can read that one. And basically, it says sort of in the middle, they should work closely with business partners to adopt more efficient business practices, reduce duplication by sharing administrative and academic resources among the colleges, and make better use of advanced technology and streamline coursework. And of course, that really pops. And this is one of the few GOPs actually higher on this, from 97% to 93%. So next. I thought you would find this one interesting, transparency, because I know you've done a lot in that area. So what are people thinking on transparency? They very much want it, but they want more focus on student outcomes, not institutional operations. And so they want to know things like, and I'm going to go to more of the VBHEC stuff. What are your internship opportunities, your job placement services, your success rate of schools graduating and finding good jobs, your average earnings, much more than, basically how your internal operations work. And it's pretty heavy if you look at 81%, okay, like that. Next. So we'll finally slow down a little bit. So why are internships so important? So I try to list for you, I talked to Alicia Bazemore Chev. The chamber does a lot of work with us also. So here's a long list. You can read for your own of some things why internships are so important. I'll sort of drop down to the middle. 97% of business leaders support the expansion of work-based learning opportunities. Employers view internship experience as the most influential factor in a tough hiring decision. The number one concern of Virginia businesses is access to necessary and qualified talent. And then here's an interesting one. College level employment rates are higher for those who complete an internship. Controlling for other factors, the odds of underemployment for graduates who had an internship were nearly 50% lower. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you had an internship or some kind of work-based learning experience? Okay. How many of you thought that was very valuable? Well, I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm going to quickly tell you my story, because I think that's really the most important thing is we sort of relate. So why are internships so important? I think we all instinctively know that. So I had the privilege of graduating from JMU way back in 1979. And it was really interesting because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So in my second year, doing the same thing on political science major. And no one's going to hire a political science major to teach, by the way, because all you can teach is government. You need a broader endorsement background called general social science that allows you to teach history, sociology, geography, etc. So but then in my sophomore year, I go, I'd be a really terrible lawyer. Maybe I should think about being a teacher. My mother was a teacher. My brother was a teacher. So teachers have the ultimate internships. They have practicums and student teaching. So I did my practicum in my junior year at Harrisonburg High School. And I wanted to be a basketball coach. So guess who's in my class? Ralph Sampson. Pretty impressive if you're a young kid. In those days, he would actually come over and play some at JMU. So that was cool. So then I went on to my student teaching, which was wonderful. And then I graduated in December because I had to double major at the last moment to get my teaching degree. So the only job available, and it turned to be a wonderful experience for me, was inner city. So I taught at Peabody Middle School in Petersburg. And the teacher had just left with a nervous breakdown. So there I am in January. I'd never taught on my own before. I looked like I was 12, and that's no exaggeration. And what JMU had taught me through those practicums and student teaching were invaluable. But let me tell you, it was difficult. I mean, it was survival the first 3 or 4 weeks. And so it turned out very well, and I loved it. It's an experience I would never trade. But I decided whenever I had a chance to mentor any kind of student or practicum or student teaching, I wanted to do that. And I wanted them the first 2 weeks in the first semester. Because for a teacher, that's everything. You set the tone the first 2 weeks. If you don't, you're really done. I hate to exaggerate, but you cannot get back what you didn't get discipline-wise. And the best way for kids to behave is for you to be interesting. Because if you're boring, you're really in trouble. So I would always do this the very first day. Remember your first day of high school? So you're coming back from the summer, you haven't seen your friends in 3 months. And so you want to talk to all of them, you want to catch up. There are 30 kids in a high school class. So what do you do the first day of school? Well, what you do is you get at least 15 to 20 forms, every federal form in the world. And the poor teacher is trying to go over all those forms, they're issuing textbooks. So if you're a new teacher, your first 50 minutes is total chaos because the kids are talking, it's just a zoo. So what I would do would be, I had my book already issued, I had all the forms in the book. Okay, we spent 5 minutes on that, and they hated this. I had their name on their desk in alphabet for discipline. So you walk in and go, find your seat. Okay, we're gonna do this in 5 minutes, and then we're gonna get started. So here's what I would do the very first day. I would have US and Virginia government. And the very first day I give them a simulation. And I always, no matter who the president was, Republican or Democrat, I shot him at the end of the first day, sorry. The scenario was very interesting. Remember, school talks about Labor Day. I give them a month background on what the president had been doing. And that was for future purposes, generally taking foreign policy trips, dealing with monetary and fiscal policy, et cetera. And then I would say, when the president was leaving, wherever he was leaving, 3 gunmen came out, I only gave one clue, with Russian-made weapons and shot the president. So you're the vice president. You've got 15 minutes to write me a statement that you would say to the press and take questions. Now I'll let you work in groups of 4. You got 15 minutes, they're looking at me like, this man is nuts. It's the first day of school. And so they're all scrambling around. And it gets into the 15 minutes, and I go, it was nice you were in a group, but you're the vice president, so I'm going to pick 2 of you. So what do kids don't want to get picked? And it's just, this is the worst experience of their life. They look at their feet. So all 3 of my kids were staring at the ground. I go, if you're looking at your feet, I'm calling orders. All immediately looked up. But I always pick 2 kids. Occasionally I have a volunteer, maybe we had 6 classes, you're the smartest kid in the class, it was gonna be brilliant. So make a long story short, I picked the 2 kids from outside the classroom, and I told the rest of the class, you're the press. You have a series of questions on your desk. If I point to you, just stand up and say, Kirk Cox, AP, Mr. Vice President, just read the question. And then as we get further on in the simulation, you can ask your own questions. So, and then say, I'm going to be the press secretary for the vice president. And so I stand up and go, ladies and gentlemen of the press, as you know, we've had a tragic situation, the president shot. The vice president will get a short statement and take limited questions. Ladies and gentlemen, the vice president of the United States. So every kid in the room steps up and starts clapping and whooping because they feel sorry for the kid that has to come in. And I go, sit down. This is a representative democracy. There's a free press. There's a First Amendment. You're not cheerleaders. This is not a convention. You've already flunked. So then I have the kid come in. And what was my one clue? You already remember? Russian-made weapons. So the kid always proceeds to start World War III. He's amassed troops on the Russian border and he's ready to kill them all. So we went through the generation, remember, where the old Soviet Union had proxy states all over. There are Russian weapons on the black market in every country. So this kid has started World War III over no evidence whatsoever. So that's bad. So then I point to the first kid, I go, ask your question. And he would stand up and go, Mr. Vice President, Kirk Cox, AP. Did you know the 25th Amendment is crucial in this situation? How would you invoke the 25th Amendment in this situation? So even the smartest kid had no idea. And he goes, well, I really don't know. And I go, you don't know. So you've trained for 45, 50 years. You are leader of to me, probably the greatest nation ever. People are looking for you both within your country and internationally to comfort and to solve, and you don't know. There are only 27 of them. And we all know it's the one that deals with disability for president. So I said, you're done, you're finished. Your career is over. And of course, you probably led us to World War III. So I'm going to conclude. And I would actually go on for a whole day with different scenarios like that. Here's how I would conclude. I go, you're in the most important subject you ever take. And that's why I love about your civic engagement. Probably the only opportunity you ever had to take government. In this unique experiment in representative democracy, I want you to be the ultimate citizen. I want you to participate. You can't do that if you don't know the founding documents. You don't know the background of the country. You're passionate about certain issues, but please just don't argue for the motion. So by the end of the year, you'll know all 27 of those amendments, and you'll really be able to be the kind of citizen I hope you'll be. Okay? So that's a long story, and I apologize for it. That was my passion. Every one of you in your job is passion for your job. And so the key to internships is when you can get that student who thinks that's their passion, and you can give them those kinds of experiences, they're going to want to work in that field. They're going to want to work for your company. They're going to want to stay. So I'll finish up next. So what are we doing besides Board of Visitors meetings? And I want to quickly cover this. And I want to thank President Alex for this. We kicked off this whole Growth of Virginia campaign to endorse all these at JMU with the Chev Council Presidents meeting on September 18th. We then proceeded to do 7 roundtables starting in Harrisonburg across the state with higher ed officials, economic development, students who are key businesses on how can we ramp up internships. And you can see they were in Harrisonburg, Norfolk, Roanoke next, Peninsula at the bottom, Charlottesville, and then of course the various Board of Visitors I've had the chance to do. Next. And I'm almost at the end. On the left, we also thought it's great to get to leadership. We have more freshmen in the House and Senate in the history of the Virginia General Assembly. And we have to get to them with this message. So we hosted a meet and greet on January the 8th. Once again, thank you, President Alger. Well, we had a lot of freshmen come out. We could tell the story a little bit about higher ed, et cetera. David Toscano, who was minority leader when I was majority leader, we got a chance to do a freshman orientation several days earlier to all the House of Delegates freshmen. And it was on bipartisanship and how to work together. And I just managed to work higher and into that presentation. So we then did a big legislative day on the Hill. You can see a lot of the people we met with advocating for this. Next. We really want to generate a lot of media because we want to get the story out on internships and talent pathways. And so very quickly, that's some of the media that we've generated, which I think is really good. We, right in the next 2 weeks, we'll have 10 to 12 editorials and letters to the editor going out from our business board members. Next. More media events. And next, last slide. So how do you make Virginia the #1 state for internships? Just a few quick thoughts. We developed a white paper on what is working and not working from our 7 statewide roundtables, which will come out probably in the next week. So we just accumulated everyone's thoughts. And some of those are, you're doing some fantastic things. Whether it be your teaching program, whether it be your business program, but are other schools duplicating those? In Richard Bland College, a little 2-year college down my way, you know, is big into advanced manufacturing. So they started a FAME program, a national program to get kids internships in advanced manufacturing. As far as I know, it's the only school that does that. And so where can we take what's going on and scale it up in other places? System building at the regional level. Right now, through the Innovative Internship Fund, it's basically a Go Virginia model, if you're familiar with Go Virginia, the 9 regions. And the funding basically goes to schools on a regional level to work with businesses to do innovative things in internships. Internships must be paid. We see they work much better. I've talked a little bit about campus internship centers. I've already talked a little bit about small business matching grants. But even on that one, we have not only given a matching grant, we're offering a staffing agency. So if you're a small business, we'll help onboard that intern. You don't have to do all the paperwork. Internships listed on an online portal. This is key marketing to raise awareness and promote expanded internship programs by business and increase participation by students. We're working with the chamber a lot on that. And finally, and I think we've gotten this, a statewide commitment by the presidents of public colleges and universities. That's it, last slide, the thank you slide. So just thank y'all for what you're doing at JMU. And I'll be glad if you have time to take any questions.
Thank you, Kirk. Is there any questions from around the board? Really incredible presentation. Yes.
Kurt, you mentioned the partnership with small businesses. What about nonprofits?
Great question. So when we first designed the small business stipend, we wanted to start with small businesses because what we didn't want to do is sort of get overwhelmed and then not have enough money. But we have now realized, and actually, well, we'll see. I think the budget language is going to reflect that now. The nonprofits really are essential also. So you will, my guess is you'll see the language expanded to nonprofits.
Because some of the internships in the nonprofit sector have to do with business.
No question. Like I said, the only reason we narrowed at the beginning was we had no idea what kind of response we were going to get. So we didn't want to, run out of the money for small business, but it takes a little while to ramp the program up. So we actually saw your wisdom of that, and we're going to expand. It's a good question. Yeah, Steve.
Kurt, we do a lot of internships, probably 25 to 30 a summer. The one impediment we have, because we want to get folks from throughout our geography, but housing seems to be an impediment. And I just wondered if you had any best case scenarios where local colleges or universities would, at a minimal cost, offer up their dorm space that mostly is unoccupied.
Well, we hear that everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, at the roundtables, that's one of the biggest things we had. Can we come up with a method by which, especially for summer interns, a JMU or a George Mason or a VCU, we heard that probably more than anything else. So obviously that is something we pushed, as far as something, and obviously, universities probably need some help with that. But it really is, when you go back to the old top jobs legislation back in 2012, one of the recommendations was, can we utilize our campuses more effectively? And obviously this comes right out of that. So I do think you'll see a lot, hopefully some incentives go towards that, because that is absolutely the key. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's a natural way to do it. There are other ways you can do it through housing vouchers, et cetera. But and the other good thing is through the small business stipend program, there's actually money available for some of the housing transportation costs within that one-to-one match. But we have to do that. And we hear more about that. People in Southwest Virginia also want to be able to do remote internships. They're trying to really keep their students there. So there are a lot of things there. Here's one thing, and I don't want to answer this too long. One of the things we're really trying to do, and I think you'll see come out of some legislation or some budget language this year, is make sure in the innovative internship funds, we allow some creativity from the institutions. So those would be institutional grants that go to the institutions, and there'll be some performance language tied to it, but also give us some flexibility to do some interesting things. Hopefully it'll be sort of creative out of the box we can copy in other places.
What's the largest impediment that you've seen from businesses for not doing or extending paid internships?
I would think for large businesses, I'll start with them. Some of them do a great job, but I still think they're very limited on the internships they actually offer. Instead of really creating a talent pool, because people move a lot more than they used to. So I think you can be a little bit short-sighted in that, hey, we need 10 interns. If you really want to create a technology talent pool, if you're in Northern Virginia, and you have a lot more capacity than that, I think you got to really look at ginning that up a little bit. I would say probably the biggest barrier to small business is they just haven't heard a lot about it. In some cases, I think Career Services does a good job. But in some cases, you'll talk to someone who have a business right outside of the university, and they go, I really don't know where to go to. It's a big place. I'm busy. I don't really know where to go to. And so how do I handle an intern? How do I give enough to do? How do I make sure that's a good mentoring opportunity? And so we have developed at Chev some business modules to give them best practices. And I'll finish with this. Here's what I think. I don't know if you're familiar with the V3 program, which is Virginia Values Veterans. I did a lot of work with veterans when I was in the General Assembly. I think some business recognition would go a long way. So what we do is If you hire a certain amount of veterans, you're either a bronze, silver, or gold business, and you can market that. And I think that's very effective. We do have something called Virginia Intern Day. It's generally around July 27th, July 28th, depending on how it falls. And actually on that day, even before that, there are 100 businesses that actually get Best Intern Awards. We've actually moved that up this year to a earlier filing deadline, so they can use that to promote, hey, we got this great gold star on internships, will you come intern for our companies? So I think we can be creative in that space, but I think a lot of it's awareness, we don't market it well. And a lot of it is, can you have one-stop shopping, can you just make it easy? And this is not a criticism. Some people have handshakes, some people have different types of things. Those are good, they're proprietary, so a little bit hard sometimes to get the data out of that. So we come up with more effective ways where business can also participate.
Thank you so much for all the work you do.
Well, thank y'all.
All right.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda is our General Assembly update. So I'm going to ask Caitlin to begin the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you again, Kirk. I know I speak for all of us when I say how much we appreciate your advocacy, and that is a tough act to follow, but I will try my best in providing some JMU specific updates related to the General Assembly session. We will go ahead and start with the state budget, where we are in the process. I'll provide an update on where we are with our operating and our capital budget requests. We'll take a look at state policy, where we are in that process. I'll provide a brief policy overview, and then we will end by talking about some of our advocacy activities for this session. So, as you likely recall, we are just over halfway through the General Assembly session, 60-day session this year, but we are about 16 months into the JMU and state budget and planning process that informs all of the work that happens during session. So we spent significant time on this slide last time we were together. I won't go into too much detail, except to say last time we were together in November, the governor had not yet released his executive budget. The governor released his executive budget on December 20th. We were in touch with all of you at that point to tell you what was in that budget related to higher ed. Tawana gave a thorough overview of the budget in her committee yesterday, and so I'll speak just to the JMU specific items in the executive budget. We'll do that in just a minute. Before I do that, I just want to draw your attention to that red arrow just to orient you as to where we are in the process. Since the governor released his budget on December 20th, the House and Senate have been very busy developing their own amended versions of that budget, and we'll see those budgets on Sunday. So you'll hear from us after that. Working towards adjournment, hopefully in early March, the House and Senate can reconcile their different versions of the budget and report something out to the governor. As a reminder, these are our 24-26 budget requests related to operating. So this is our ongoing, primarily academic, ongoing support initiatives. We bring a lot of ideas forward in our biennial plan. This year we had 8 ideas for operating support. We bring them forward knowing there is no way we are going to prioritize or advocate for every single one of these in a session. That would just be, unwieldy. We bring them forward because it gives us the opportunity to then visit them next year or in subsequent years if state needs change or evolve, or our needs change or evolve. So this year, our priorities were on those first 3 items you see: support for veterans, and then expanding our nursing programs and our teacher prep pipeline. And I'll talk about each of those items in more detail here on the next slide. So related to what was specifically included in the executive budget for James Madison University, you see nearly $1 million in ongoing funding to support the expansion of our undergraduate nursing program. I do want to note that JMU was one of very few schools to get standalone funding for the expansion of an academic program. I think this has to do a lot with the acute workforce need that this budget item addresses. I also think it has a lot to do with our strong statewide and national reputation for our nursing program. I do want to be very clear that because an item is funded in the governor's budget does not mean it is final. It still has a very long way to go before it is final. The House and Senate have to agree that it's a good idea and move to pass it out. So we're excited. It's a great first step to have that money in there, but it's absolutely far from final. And then I want to note on this Virginia Military Survivors Independent Education Program. This is a waiver program. We've talked to you guys about this before. This is a program that is incredibly important that allows our disabled veterans and their dependents to come to school in Virginia at a four-year public for free. Excellent program, vital pathway to higher education, and very, very expensive for JMU. We currently do not receive any state support for this program. It's expected to cost us $6.7 million next year. These schools came together and collaboratively asked the governor for support for this item. It was not funded in the budget, so the schools have again come together to submit what we call a unified amendment. So all the schools working together to elicit support for this from the House and Senate. The last estimates we saw of the system-wide cost for this item is between 80 and 90 million. So it's a big ticket item, and we are working on that. And next you see our teacher prep program. This is a really innovative teacher preparation program that we are doing in partnership with Old Dominion University and Longwood University that would look at individuals who are already in the classrooms. These are perhaps your teacher's aides who have a certain level of education, but don't have the level of education that is needed to qualify for teacher licensure. So in partnership with ODU and Longwood, we would deliver them online learning and mentorship and guidance that after 3 years would qualify them for teacher licensure. We anticipate this program could produce 300 teachers per year at a cost of $3,200 a teacher. So an incredibly innovative way to produce a lot of really well-trained teachers. So we are hopeful. We have submitted budget amendments in both the House and Senate there. Those two items are highlighted in purple because those are the two operating priorities we moved ahead with this session. Everything else you see there are items that we can come back to next year or in subsequent years if they're aligned with state and university need. I do actually, sorry, before we move on, I want to call your attention to the $3 million there noted for student employee mental health. The governor included $3 million to help universities on the expenses that we have. Currently, we spend more than $500,000 a year on a telehealth system for our students to support their mental health. If this $3 million remains in the budget and is successful, we really think it could help subsidize some of our costs there. It would be incredibly helpful. Coming back to capital, just as a refresher, you see on your left the expansion of the College of Health and Behavioral Studies building. This expansion is vital to grow our undergraduate nursing program. You saw the money currently in the governor's budget to do that operationally. We need the square footage to grow that program. We have a plan to grow it in the interim in some swing space on campus that's not ideal long-term or sustainable. So we need that square footage, and not only for our undergraduate nursing, but for our graduate nursing and our physician assistant program. We have tremendous demand for both and can't grow it until we get some new space online. You see the East Campus STEAM plan up there on your right. This is the third and final phase of improvements to that facility. That facility is responsible for all of the heating and cooling on East Campus. And once the improvements are made, it will provide redundancy and cost savings for all of campus. And then on the bottom, you see Johnston Hall. This is a 94-year-old academic building. It currently houses our graduate psychology program. We have significant renovations we need to make on the inside of this, primarily for ADA compliance, life safety issues. We need to put an elevator in there. Currently, if you are in a wheelchair, you cannot access the second floor of this building. So significant changes we need to make the inside of that facility. So moving into capital, how capital is treated in the executive budget. On the whole, there was not a lot of capital included in the executive budget. There's a lot of reasons for that. In recent years, we have seen huge cash surpluses, one-time monies, COVID recovery funds that have enabled for some capital projects to move through in the last few years. That is not the reality this year. We are being told there's very limited cash on hand and that the state does not have a huge appetite to acquire a ton of debt to finance these projects. That said, the East Campus STEAM plant was funded in the executive budget. We are incredibly thankful for that. Again, not final, but a great first step. That is a vital infrastructure project for us, so we're thankful for that. The College of Health and Behavioral Studies building, as well as Johnston Hall, were not funded. We have formal budget amendments in both the House and Senate for those projects. You'll see on the College of Health and Behavioral Studies, we dialed that request back significantly and are now just seeking funding to do the planning portion of that project. It allows us to get moving on it and complete detailed working drawings, schematics, all of that to better position us to come back next session and ask for construction funds. So that is where we are at with the capital. You'll see on the bottom non-general fund requests that were included in the governor's budget. As a state agency, we are required to get permission from the state to spend our own funds on capital projects. This is the state granting permission through the executive budget for the renovation of Spotswood Hall. That's a residence hall, as well as some blanket property acquisition. That's a pretty standard item for JMU. That concludes budget. We'll move into policy unless folks want me to pause for any reason. With the policy timeline functions slightly different than the budget timeline. So you'll see we are in the land between crossover and session adjournment. Crossover was last week. That's a vitally important milestone in session because the bills have to have successfully passed out of their body of origin or they won't survive. And so by that point this week. So earlier this week, we got a really good idea for the bills that will survive and it helps orient us to know what we're working with and then marching towards adjournment on March 9. Just to give you a brief idea for policy themes, every year we see lots and lots of studies proposed. It feels like even more studies this year, perhaps. So those studies the legislature can direct JLARC or SHEV or other state agencies to dig deep into topics. This year we saw study proposals for everything from admissions fees to artificial intelligence. And so we are watching a number of those study proposals. There is a significant piece of legislation moving through that would radically change how institutions are allowed to engage in name, image, likeness with our student athletes. So that is still in play. The General Assembly has chosen to again take a look at the procurement of capital construction, the ways in which universities procure those services and making sure they are as fair and transparent and efficient as possible. We see lots and lots of student affairs bills every year. This year is no different. Those bills typically look like new mandated training for students or maybe changes to how centers like our student health center or our counseling center operate. We saw all of that this year. And lots of bills on IT, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. That is not surprising given the environment we live in. They were not higher ed specific bills, but because we are a state agency, we frequently get brought into those pieces of legislation. So we're watching some of that. 2,600 bills this session dropped really since New Year's Day. That's actually a little bit of a lower volume than I think a lot of us were anticipating. But still gives us a lot to work through. We're tracking about 140 bills that would have or would have had a direct impact on university operations. Lastly, I will just conclude with highlighting some of our advocacy activities. President Aldner and members of his senior leadership have been in Richmond every week, not just since session began, but in the lead up to session, the weeks over the holidays, and even before that, we really start our efforts anew in early summer and the fall, doing district visits across the states with members of the House and Senate for them to get to know JMU. And that has been really helpful in solidifying relationships we already have and building relationships given the huge number of new members that you heard Kirk mention. We just a couple weeks ago had some of our students from our nursing and our physician assistant programs down in Richmond advocating for the expansion of the College of Health and Behavioral Studies space. They were hands down the best advocates. They were wonderful. And I know President Alger already mentioned it, but we did have our first ever full-scale legislative reception last week. I just want to echo his thanks to all of you who showed up for us and came out to that event. And then in addition to that, so many of you have made phone calls, made visits, written letters, written emails, talked to your friends. So thank you. That is invaluable. And we are not done yet. So you all will be hearing from us once the budgets come out Sunday and we have a grip as to what our next best steps are. We also look forward to hosting more students in the coming weeks, including Abby and some of her colleagues. We'll also have a teacher lobby day where we are going to bring down some of our teacher preparation candidates who are doing non-traditional pathways, and they can talk to the legislators about what that has looked like for them. So it should be a great couple of visits coming. That concludes my comments. I'm happy to take questions if people have them.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Caitlin, I'd just like to say, as somebody who his day job is down in the Capitol with you, she is working her tail off down there. I see her all the time. And I've heard nothing but incredible things about the work. I want to thank the president and everyone else who's been down there talking with people, because it's really moving the needle. It's really making a difference. I mean, when she showed you that budget number, no one else is getting things like that right now. It's very impressive. So I just want to thank you for all your hard work. It's really paying.
Thank you for that. And again, it's everyone in this room. So thank you all for the support. Nobody can do this job. You know that.
Thank you, Nicole, for that. I was similarly gonna say it was pretty loudly and consistently reported that Caitlin has been doing a great job down there. So I echo Nicole's sentiments. Very heartfelt. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, with that, our next topic is the JMU Foundation and Investment Strategy. I do want to underscore the foundation is a separate entity from the university. It has its own board and structure. Warren Coleman is the JMU Foundation Executive Director and an alumni of JMU. Carly, so we do not have any operating or oversight responsibilities as a board to the foundation, but Carly very astutely pointed out in probably her first meeting that the university is very dependent on the funds in the foundation. So it was prudent for us to understand how the funds are invested and have an opportunity to ask any questions. So we have invited Warren, and it was a great, very prudent ask. So we've invited Warren and some of his team to come and speak to us, provide that overview. So with that, Warren.
Yes, Madam Rector, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for letting us attend. Nick and I spoke to the board a couple of years ago. So there's a lot of details that new members don't really know about the foundation. So if you go to the next slide, Donna. Just as Mary Beth was saying, we're on the left here, your left, 501c3. We have our own board of trustees, and we receive all the grants. And over here, obviously, is your box. When we say this, for our board of trustees, as Mary Beth mentioned, we have 21 members. We have 2 ex officio members, which are Nick and Luana. And then we have myself and our CFO, or adjunct faculty, the adjunct members of the committee. And then we also have a program. It's really like a training ground. We have 6 fellows. So we have people that are not on the board, non-voting, but they get to attend our meetings. So that's how we're operating. How we're connected, if you look at the bottom, 2 separate entities connected by affiliation agreement or a memorandum of understanding. And of course, we have a common goal of supporting the JMU community. If you switch to the next slide, I just want you to understand us. And the 2 things that are highlighted here, I think, are most important for our mission. The very first thing for this question, our mission is to provide prudent investment policy and stewardship to sustain and grow financial support. That's our key mission. And then if you look down here in our values, it's just as we talked about, committed to James Madison University community, value and trust, collaboration, innovation, accountability, and excellence. That's what we're driven by. Don, if you go next. I wanted to just mention this one here because just a little bit to know about the foundation before we turn it over to Barry and Liza to talk about actually some of the investments. To see the first one, it's the critical one. We are fiduciary. That's our main point. We accept the gifts. We go down through these, and sometime maybe at a board meeting or a training session, we could go through a lot more of these. But as you kind of go down through there, we protect the donor rights, we establish investment policy, and we manage the investments. If you look, the wording that is in our affiliation agreement or MOU, section 8, which talks about responsibilities, it's 8D. It says act as a repository for all current and future endowment gifts to the university, unless the donor specifies otherwise. The management of these funds, including investment, payout rates, and administrative fees, is the prerogative of the Investment Foundation Board of Trustees. So just to talk about the separation, that's in the bylaws between the 2 of us and memorandum that it is our duty to invest and fund it. If you go to the next slide. All right, back up just a second, if you don't mind. Go back, let's go back. I was asked at the last minute to mention our committees. How do we do these duties here? We have 6 committees so that the 21 trustees are spread over. We have admin and finance, which you can imagine does with our policies and our budgets. We have enterprise risk management or audit. That's kind of self-explanatory. We have a development committee. That's more of a, hopefully a volunteer arm for Nick's organization, maybe to have meetings and different things that we can come back into and help support the development of the advancement committee there. We have an investment committee, obviously. We have real estate. We have 6 pieces of property right now that we deal with. So as I mentioned, we have admin, ER, audit. We have the I get to go through the development, advancement, and the governance. That was the one I was missing, the governance, which you just recently added. So those are the committees that we have. To do this, we use 21 members that have full-time day jobs. And where I want to transition to is one of those day job people that has been key to our organization for about almost 12 years now, and that's Barry Purcell. So Barry, if you don't mind stepping up, Barry's going to go over the committees and some of the other things of how we've dealt with investments over the last 12 years while he's been here. Barry, if you don't know, is a 96 grad. He's an alum. If you were here in the mid years of the mid 90s, he was also the goalkeeper for the soccer team from NCAA. So he knows how to stop a lot of balls, and he's been dealing greatly with our investments, stopping and starting things there. So I'm going to let Barry take over and do a slide past this.
Let's stick right here, Warren. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always an honor to be up here and helping JMU. And what I wanted to do is 3 things: give you a bit of history on the endowment, how it was managed and under what model, a bit on the people, and a bit on an exciting new transition we have with an incredible investment partner going forward. Prior to 2014, the university, JMU, used its custodian Northern Trust as its advisor. Northern Trust principally relied on mutual funds, proprietary products to manage the endowment. In 2014, we ran an extensive process to try and what we thought would be the right direction to work with either a consultant or an OCIO, an outsourced investment officer. We chose Monticello, based in Denver. They're a large consultant. And Monticello effectively helped us transition into more high quality, lower cost investment managers. And under their oversight from 2014 to 2023, the endowment nearly doubled from 67 million to 135 million in 2023. And that's net of spending of 40 million and contributions of 47 million. So we were excited to work with them, but we are on to, we think, bigger and better things. Can you go to the next slide? I want to introduce a few of the folks that are on the investment committee, because I think they're have fantastic backgrounds and have added a lot to the discussion over the years. We have senior investment professional from Virginia Retirement System, senior investment professional from Ford Foundation, Morgan Stanley, former Goldman Sachs partners, current senior professional at Oak Tree Management out in California, and a list of other. So my point here is that we've been able to attract some fantastic alumni to come back and give their time, and it's been great to interact with them over the years. Now let's keep going. Yeah, there we go. And so about a year ago, well, just over a year ago, let me pull my slide here. We undertook the process of evaluating our investment consultant and went through a process that started in October of 22. Over a year, we narrowed the search down to 5 firms, which we interviewed. What was important there was that we had access to private assets principally meaning private equity, venture capital, real estate, private credit, which we didn't previously have access to under our consultant. And so we could build a fully diversified, lower risk, higher returning portfolio and add a more comprehensive portfolio management function. which means better risk management, daily oversight, and that sort of thing. And we also wanted to have a top performer, and we found one in Cornerstone. We required a top quartile performance. Other things we were interested in was locality, someone that's going to be able to see us on a regular basis in person, and capacity for growth, and of course, their leadership and deep talent pool that they have. So after, I guess it was 10 reference checks, a number of in-person meetings, we came to the decision at the end of September of 23 to partner with Cornerstone. And we're really excited about that development. They are naturally regarded as one of the top OCIOs in the business, and luckily they're in Charlottesville. So we're very thankful to have that partnership. And with that, I wanted to introduce Liza Scott. Liza, just so you don't have to go through your background and brag about yourself, she was a senior professional at the Spider Management prior to joining Cornerstone. She was in charge of the maintenance pension. She's also worked at JP Morgan, I believe. She sits on the University of Virginia Foundation, and her accolades are much longer than that. But I wanted to turn it over to you, and thank you for being here, Liza.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to present to this group, and I speak for the whole firm when I say it's an honor to work every day on behalf of the foundation, and we were delighted to be chosen to partner with the foundation. Barry already said enough about me. I'm a partner at Cornerstone. I want to take this opportunity to just tell you a little bit about Cornerstone and how we're working with JMU and what we're in the process of building for JMU. We can go to this slide. As Barry said, we're an OCIO firm focused exclusively on endowments and foundations. Most of our 30 professionals are based in Charlottesville, but like many others, we've embraced hybrid and remote arrangements to retain the best talent. So you can see on that bottom graph, we have colleagues scattered throughout the country. In terms of our clients, as of October 1st, we were slightly under 19 billion in assets, and that's made up of 17 clients. Just to give you a sense of our client types, so last year we gained 3 clients, and it's pretty representative of our client base. One being JMU, so a higher ed client, that's about 1/3 of our clients. We gained a hospital system based in Texas, and so about 1/3 of our clients are healthcare oriented. And then the other 1/3 is foundations, so non-healthcare oriented foundation clients. Of our 30 team members, 12 are owners of the management company and I participate in that group. And then we think working with Cornerstone should be like having your own investment office down the hall. So our service model is such that every client works with the senior partners of Cornerstone. I am the lead on the JMU relationship. And then we have JMU has a full service investment operations and administration partner. And so I've included the bios of the people that most closely interface with JMU in the back, and then also a list of, there's a slide showing some of the administrative duties we were able to take off the staff's plate. Barry touched on why the committee selected us. We have a very experienced team working at some of the top investment offices for endowments in the country. We have team members from Dartmouth, UVMCO, UVA's investment office. I spent a lot of time at University of Richmond, the Nature Conservancy, SMU, Ohio State, and then obviously significant experience doing this at Cornerstone and a strong track record, which I've included in the materials. I know an important differentiator for the committee was the degree with which we can customize portfolios. So all of our clients are in separately managed accounts. So for JMU, all of their public investments, which I'll show you the asset allocation, but right now that's 95% of the portfolio. Eventually it'll be 75% of the portfolio. But all of those investments are made in JMU's name. There's no pooled vehicles. JMU owns them directly. They're custodied at Northern Trust. If we were to no longer work with the foundation, it's a seamless transition. The private investments for JMU are within our private funds, and that was just decided because of administrative ease and because of the size of JMU, that made more sense. But we can customize asset allocation, we can customize within asset classes if there's certain exposures clients want to avoid. So I knew that was important to the committee. We're aligned in the sense that this is our only business. We have no other products. This is all we do. Because we are so customized, it's a very high touch client experience, and we realize we can't do this for everyone. So we're focused on doing it for a small group of clients, and I already touched on the broad management company ownership. This is our leadership team, split into the investment committee and then the operations team. I will just note, of the 30 employees we currently have 4 JMU degrees. One person has 2. Shane Galley, who some of you may know, he was valedictorian of his class at JMU, and he's on our management committee. He oversees our hedge fund portfolio, and I know has had some involvement with the foundation. We are adding a new member to our investment team in March, so we will increase to 5 Dukes. So excited about that. Moving on, I won't spend time, but in your materials is our track record. This is our client composite, so all clients that we've had longer than 3 years, compared against the red square is their policy benchmark, and then we've compared it against a universe of peer endowments and foundations. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we work with the foundation. So at the inception of our relationship, we hosted, or actually we didn't host, it was here, we led an investment committee retreat. And so the staff of the foundation attended, the investment committee, and then myself and several of my colleagues. And so prior to that retreat, we had gotten to know as much as we could about the foundation, reviewing past materials, talking to Warren and his team, talking to Mike Walden, the investment committee chair, trying to decipher things like the risk tolerance of the organization, the liquidity needs, the spending policy, the strategic time horizon, all of these important things that go into what investment program we would design. And so we came to the retreat with a proposal or revisions to the investment policy statement, asset allocation, a lot of discussions about how we were going to work together, because this was obviously a change in model, making sure everyone understands their roles, how we're going to maintain the highest level of fiduciary excellence, how we'll measure the program, how we'll report on it, all of these important topics to kind of set the stage for a successful investment program. And as Barry highlighted, the foundation has a very sophisticated investment committee, so we really just iterated on our proposals and I think got to a better spot. And there were a few changes to the investment policy statement, and then eventually that was approved by the foundation's board. And so since then, we have been busy implementing that policy and transitioning the portfolio and creating the customized reporting that the committee would like. And so next week, actually, we have our first committee meeting to review performance, review the reports. And then every meeting we have a deep dive on a special topic, and this one will be on our hedge portfolio. Just a slide on our investment strategy that underlies the portfolio we're building. So we ascribe to the endowment model. Some of you may have heard of it. We didn't create this idea. It was really created by David Swenson, the late CIO of Yale. But of course, we have our own implementation of it. And just some key principles underlying the strategy is we use the perpetual nature of the capital of the foundation to its advantage. That allows us to take on some illiquidity. It allows us to take advantage of buying opportunities when there's volatility in the market. Allows us to invest in strategies that are looking out maybe next year or even 3 years out, as opposed to next quarter. The endowment model, we believe we can improve the risk and return profile of the traditional 70-30 portfolio by diversification across a broader range of asset classes. Significant allocations to alternative assets. So those are hedge funds, private equity, venture capital, real estate, and then capitalizing on our significant expertise in manager selection. You know, it's not enough to just allocate to a broader range of asset classes. You have to pick the right managers within those asset classes. And then we incorporate risk management throughout the entire process. And so this slide, so let me just orient you to what this is showing. So the gray column is the target asset allocation that we proposed and was eventually approved by the investment committee for JMU. The far left column is the asset allocation at the time of the inception of our relationship. And then I've included the asset allocations of endowments of various sizes. So you can see that on the right-hand side. Now, again, because of the level of investment expertise on the investment committee, the foundations committee had already embraced alternatives, you know, in the, they had a significant allocation to diversifying assets, which is what we call hedge funds. So really the biggest change was committing to building out the private portfolio. And you can see the target now is 25%. You can also see that we probably won't achieve that target until 2028. We don't want to put all the money to work in 1 year. We want vintage year diversification. And then the way private funds work is the capital is called down over time. So this is our estimate of when we will get to this target allocation. But you can see that the allocation is well within what peers are doing. And then most importantly, it's well within the liquidity guidelines that were adopted in the investment policy statement that are based on our analysis on the liquidity needs of the foundation. So on my last slide, you know, why are we doing this and why is the foundation doing this? Ultimately, we think it will lead to better returns. So this one, this is though from Nakubo, the 1 year median return, and then you can go across. So with the exception of the 1 year, you will see if you look up the columns, long-term performance increases with the size of endowment. So there's several reasons why we think that's the case. You know, one, I just showed you that as the endowment size increases, their allocation to alternatives and specifically private investments increases. Also, as you increase in size, the endowment is more likely to have a full-time, experienced, dedicated team managing the assets 24/7. And then lastly, there are some benefits to size in terms of the managers that endowment is able to access. So some of the most hard to access managers really market to the largest investors. And so we think the committee deciding to outsource to Cornerstone gives them really the benefits of a full-time team. We will increase the allocation, as you saw on the slide before, to alternative investments, which we think will improve the risk and return profile. And then, you know, obviously we have a full-time team focused on managing the assets all the time. So that concludes my slides, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
And if we could go back to that slide, Liza, I just had one kind of probably clarifying question. The bottom two rows of this slide show the JMU Foundation as a separate estimate than the categorization of our current foundation dollars, which is 100 million to 250 million. Are we saying that by moving into the investment strategy that has been approved, will we move up to those higher returns?
I mean, not that we think you will. It's not just a function of.
No, I totally understand. In the financial industry, I'm just trying to understand why JMU Foundation has a separate line with lower forecasted returns.
Oh, sorry, these aren't forecasted returns, these are actual.
Of what we've.
Yes, these are past returns.
Got it. Okay, missed that one.
No, I'm sorry, I should have clarified that.
Okay, thanks.
First of all, Madam Rector and President Alger, thank you for putting this on the agenda, and thank you so much, all of you, for coming and presenting this. Let me start by saying I have no doubt about your fiduciary duty of care, the expertise of your board on the foundation, the expertise of the CIO that you've selected. I have no doubt about any of those things. And indeed, I'm reassured by this presentation. I want, if I may, to ask you a process question and a philosophy question, and anyone can take it. The process question is this. How and when would there be a decision to call for a review of, or a reconsideration of your allocation strategy? What would trigger that? How would you do that?
So in the investment policy, we committed to an annual review of our asset allocation. So, we model different scenarios, and so we will revisit that annually. Given that we are so far off from the target right now, I would be surprised if it changed, this year, but of course, we will revisit that every year. And as we get closer to it, and our analysis shows the foundation could actually tolerate more liquidity, but, we will hope to get the committee comfortable with that over the years, and it will take years to build it in.
And so if I could dig just a little deeper, only because this is a real life example in another part of my life. Let's say something changes fairly quickly. So we had a presentation about AI. 2 years ago, a lot of CIOs were saying, big tech is too pricey, we're not getting it. A year ago, a lot of CIOs said, we've missed the run up in big tech, we're not getting in. Now it would appear that big tech is building a moat around a huge and rapidly growing new industry called AI, and it's going to run for a decade or more. So something relatively recent has changed a lot. How would you have that conversation? Would you have that conversation?
So first of all, our investment managers are having that conversation daily. So we don't try to be tactical and, trade the portfolio. We don't think we're gonna add a lot of value by doing that. But our managers, that are picking individual investments, that's all they do. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but is the question like, would we, if we decided we wanted more allocation to tech or less?
The process question I'm really asking is, would the investment committee, for example, I'm trying to sort of understand the relationship. Would the investment committee or a member of an investment committee feel free to call you up and say, we're noticing something, gee, maybe we ought to have a conversation, or not? Or is it a once a year review and here's where we are? And that's really what I'm trying to understand. And
I can answer that. I think one of the key differences, and I'll stand up here, one of the key differences between the consultancy model and the OCIO model is a matter of discretion. In that, as a consultancy model, what would happen is the consultant would come back, and we'd have our asset allocation, and come back with a menu of funds and investment opportunities that have been vetted at the consultant, whether the operational due diligence, the investment diligence, and then we would come up with an idea based on the consultant's recommendations, and it would be implemented. In this case, with an OCIO, the OCIO has discretion. Now, they will make all the investment decisions. That's
why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, and that being said, they are very open to our ideas, but it's not our call. Our call is to, much like this board in the sense that you're not making calls on campus, but you're helping shape the leadership, I guess. I don't know if that's fair to say, but that's how we look at this relationship. We have a fiduciary duty. It's still going to take, constant monitoring, but the actual day-to-day calls are made by the outsourced investment.
Thank you. And that's exactly why I'm asking the question, because what I'm trying to get at is if something in your view or in the investment committee's view changes within the year that you would normally review allocation, and the change is potentially significant, how do you handle that? Do you wait because they have discretion? Is there an opportunity to raise it? Just
So, sorry,
And I'm not trying to ask awkward questions.
No.
I think-
So we revisit our capital market assumptions monthly. So we are constantly assessing whether we should change our finance asset allocation. We all, and so if something changed, for instance, last year, interest rates rose a lot. Maybe we should have more fixed income. You do a lot around analysis around that. But as I talked to Mike Walden, the investment committee chair, who also works at the Ford Foundation doing this exact same job. So, obviously, he's very knowledgeable, and we talk regularly about Warren. I mean, it's a complete open communication, but we are on the hook for decisions because we were on the hook for performance. But we would certainly listen to any, concerns they had, and for instance, the committee meetings we have. I send an agenda a month before to Mike and Warren, make sure it looks good, but that could change if we wanted to pull asset allocation forward because we think things have changed. It's very fluid in that sense.
Thank you, that's helpful. Well, just a little pin to drop. There's been more computing power sold in the last 90 days of 2023 than in the history of mankind. Philosophy question, if I may. How do you think about the growth of this endowment? Of course, the ambition of development, the ambition of this board, the ambition of the university is for JMU's capital campaigns to grow, to be increasingly successful, to have the reputation of this firm, of this university become larger and larger. And we have a relatively small endowment and a relatively low growth endowment in our history. And we want to change that. So how do you all think about that? Ideally, this endowment will be at least doubled in size relatively soon, growing at faster rates. Talk a little bit about that.
Carly, one of the things, some of the other universities is that when your goal is the endowment, that also has to be the goal of fundraising organization. And if we look at the last campaign, towards the end of it, because of the need, it shifted more to scholarships. So, it's one of the things when you talk about endowments have a double. We had a presentation from Virginia Tech, and the question was, we asked their CEO of the foundation, he came and visited with us. How did you get from 250 million to $1 billion? He said, our president said that's what we're going to do. So, it's like one of those things, it's like where you focus your money. I mean, anybody can say that's what we're going to do, but if your focus is where your need is, you can be endowment. Our need was scholarships. So I think our fundraising challenges are the things that can also impact it. So,
absolutely right.
So that's, from standpoint.
Totally fair, totally fair.
So I think from that standpoint, that's one thing that drives it.
And yet we also want our endowment to grow.
Well, I mean, I was just saying, so, I always think, and just when you talk with other presentations, it's the body of alumni that are out there that Nick and his team are working with. When we talked about, if you look in the 60s, when you would think those would be estates and things like that coming into your endowment, we had 4,000 graduates, and then John and them graduate 4,000 every May. So in the last 10 years, we've had 40,000 people coming out. So I think that's one of the impacts on there. We have to look at those down. We were blessed because, I think we had just one recent person that is making a large, who was from that early age, made a tremendous gift in their estate to the foundation, and it's all endowment. So we see those pops, we just don't see the big pops yet. And I think because of things, but philosophy wise, because of what we had before, we were looking at, when Barry said in 2014, we couldn't hardly find anybody that wanted to talk to us because of that size. Monticello came in and stepped in and did that. Now we've got to a stage where Cornerstone will step in. We're going to go from a $150 million endowment, basically one that can trade at 19 billion, because obviously we're not going to be in the endowments, the fixed assets, for private equity as much as some of the other things. But what my biggest concern is that daily supervision that they have daily supervision where we didn't have daily supervision before. And now we have daily supervision. Now, to your point, that daily supervision can come back to daily conversations, monthly conversations as they review what's happening in the market, how we need to change our managers. They can come back to us. When we have things moving on, we don't have 3 meetings a year, we have multiple meetings when they're needed. So I think from the standpoint of philosophy wise, how do we get the biggest way? Coming and getting some of the private equities that we haven't had exposure to, because as you've seen on this chart here, all of the larger places have a lot higher returns because they have some of the deals with the private equities, which I'm sure you've heard much aware of. We didn't have any exposure. So that's one of the big things I think this will allow us, hopefully, to put that extra juice in at the appropriate time.
And it's a great example, by the way, of the operational consequences of thinking as a bigger opportunity than a small opportunity. So I agree with the example. Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Any other questions?
Carly, can I just speak just for a second to clarify one thing that Warren said? So Warren said it's because we focused on the scholarships. And so just for education, there are expendable scholarships that are awarded the year that they're received, and there are scholarship endowments that are awarded over time. So it's not simply that we focused on scholarships that moved away from the endowment. What he meant is we focused on expendable scholarships through things like the Warden Scholarship Challenge. And I would just say from a goal standpoint, the Madison plan that went from 2014 to 2020 had as one of its goals to help us go from 59 million, which is where we were when John Alger started, to 100 million in that 6-year period. We were successful in achieving that goal, and obviously went on in the next 6 years to 150 million before there was a market correction and came back down a bit. But I want to let you know, it took us 40 years to get to 59 million.
Yes, and by the way, thank you for that clarification. Thank you again so much for the presentation. You're punctuating my point. So it took 40 years.
Yeah.
And then it took less than 10. So that's a very different trajectory for an endowment. And so I was just pushing around on, that's a different model of, that's a different way to think about what the assets are. That's all. So thank you for, that's why I asked for the review.
Yeah, and I think
We want it to be huge and growing.
Yeah, that's the trajectory. Thanks, Nick, for his comments on about the expendable scholarships. And again, sometimes in your organization's life, you have to direct yourself on what you need at that point. And that was what we were directing it towards the end. So as we go through the campaign and the other things to come, hopefully that campaign's going to throw off. We don't want anybody to graduate and go to heaven, but we have one recently that the stakes and things, those may come in, they will impact it as we go as a goal as an organization.
Well, and success breeds success. So that's why all the successes add up. Thank you so much.
Questions? Well, thank you, Liza. Yeah, thank you very much for your time today. If anybody would like more details about the foundation, more than willing, you give me a call. We'll have a chance to sit down. Suzanne and I had a chance about a month ago to sit down and talk about the foundation, so she would understand the relationship here because she actually sat on the board of visitors at Virginia Tech. Anybody else would love conversations, the door is always open. Please.
I'm happy to provide more color on.
Yeah, I mean,
thanks for being here.
Barry-
Thank you all for being here.
Barry has offered multiple times, if there are situations that people want to really discuss in the dips and the ups and downs, he's been willing, Mike's been willing. So we have a very educated and sophisticated investment committee that's willing to talk. And one of the slides I'll just most of, the fiduciary responsibility has never changed. It's in the same spot, and it's the same place that we're going to be responsible for. So thank you very much.
So Warren, Barry, and Liza, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. It's been a very, very informative presentation. 2 things I do want to call out. First and foremost, I will be first in line to help celebrate when we reach $1 billion. I look forward to that day. Second, I just wanted to call out to the board members, you will receive the annual report from the foundation. So every year you will be receiving that as information. Again, as Warren noted, if you have any questions post receiving that, please feel free to reach out to Warren, not me, because he'll be the first to be able to answer your questions. My husband is a thorough reader of their annual report and compliments Warren on it every year. So thank you again.
Thank you all.
Okay. Next up on our agenda is the research, economic development and innovation. And I would like Heather to please come up and provide the introduction, if you would please. Thank you very much.
I will be very brief. We've been sitting for 3 hours. If you all need to stretch a little, we won't take offense. I'm very proud of what has happened in the research division at James Madison. We say the word research, but that encapsulates so much more than faculty and student investigation and discovery. There is so much that happens in this area, and we have seen tremendous expansion and depth and impact of this work. And I do want to credit Dr. Anthony Tongan with his leadership of this area of our campus and how extraordinarily it has shifted the identity of this institution and the reputation of this institution, all simultaneously engaging very closely with our students and our faculty. So I'm pleased to introduce someone you already know, Dr. Anthony Tongan, our Chief Research Officer, and Keith Holland.
Well, thank you. You often wonder when you're at the end of an agenda, what the tenor of the room is going to be. And I hope yours is in a much better state than mine. But really excited to share briefly with you about economic development. And as a Chief Research Officer, I'm going to try to describe more broadly how economic development fits into our research infrastructure and try to, in my 2 to 3 minute intro, paint the picture of research, economic development, and innovation here at James Madison University. And so, because I love dad jokes, I will say, are you ready? Because READY is the acronym we use for research, economic development, and innovation. So I'll try not to use that too often since there was no real strong, enthusiastic laughter inside. I was really cracking up. So I also wanted to paint the picture for kind of big picture, what we oversee in READY. And one of the things that we're probably most known for is the first thing, which is external sponsor program funding under the leadership of Dr. Bessie Muhanja. And we've seen great growth in that. We've almost doubled our external sponsor program research funding in the last 5 years. And so this has been a significant growth of resources coming in to support the work that's happening at this institution across all divisions, actually. And then we even heard of a particular potential FEMA grant earlier, and my ears might have lit up. Another aspect of kind of overall leadership for the university is federal relations. In fact, Mr. Bendel, who leads this for us, he and I were at the Hill last week and had great conversations with our congressional representatives, not only informing them about the great work that's happening at JMU, but also offering to be a resource for them. How can we support the work that they're doing as part at that federal level and really advocating for JMU on many levels. Research and innovation is something that we do well, and this is, I think, somewhat distinctive of a research office at a place like JMU and having a student-focused piece of that. It is so critical to the work that our faculty are doing, which is that student component of it. And so having places like X Labs, which many of you visited last year, would love to have any of you who didn't see it, please contact me. We'll give you a tour. X Labs is also doing some really innovative things in the internship space. I won't share more now, but if you're interested, please come talk to me. We also oversee esports and some of these kind of university-wide pieces. And then finally, as we recently added economic development, this is also a university-wide piece that we are trying to coordinate and figure out the best way to how do we bring that all together with this community and the things that we're doing. If you could advance to the next slide. You heard a little bit about the economic impact survey. And there's a long report. Here are some of the data that I wanted to highlight. And those are real jobs and those are real economic returns, both locally and at the statewide level. One of the things that's somewhat distinctive about our sponsored program external funding portfolio is that about 2/3 of those resources are designated as public service and outreach. And what that means is those resources are going right back into the community. And that's part of what is helping to make those connections across the community. What we're trying to do by aligning our research and our economic development is as we build our research infrastructure, what role does that play as we really seek to be a benefit not only to our faculty and students here, but the community in which we live and work and are trying to connect with in a really tangible way. And so as Keith talks and presents our economic development, I want you to know that one, this is new, but this is an important part as we build up this research infrastructure, that we aren't just focused on JMU. We certainly are in supporting all the work that's going on, but how does that connect with the community? So Keith.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and tell you about the progress that has been made in establishing this new office to support university economic engagement. First, I want to start off by recognizing that the term economic development is often understood in a number of different ways by a number of different people. While corporate attraction, expansion, and job creation are important elements of economic development, they're not a core responsibility of a university. But universities contribute to creating the environments that support these economic development activities. We're already here. So the association, that's why the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities Commission on Economic and Community Engagement, along with the University Economic Developers Association, characterize universities' contributions to economic development according to the talent, innovation, and place, or TIP framework, which is described briefly on this slide. Public research universities engage their communities and regions to tackle social challenges, create great places to work and to live, advance prosperity through partnerships with community organizations, small businesses, major corporations, and entrepreneurs. And together, they create and realize a shared vision for healthy, engaged citizens, for thriving economies, and outcomes for a bright future. As described by this TIP framework, all divisions and offices at JMU contribute to the advancement of talent, contribute to innovation, and the character of the place in which we reside. This definition and framework also allows us to consider how we measure and how we communicate and enhance university impact. And that's a primary purpose for this Office of Economic and Community Development. Next slide, please. Because there's recognition that economic engagement occurs throughout the university and that we're all involved in it, in 2019, President Alger established the University Economic Development Council, or UEDC, as I might accidentally slip into saying, to facilitate coordination of economic engagement activities throughout the university. The UEDC, see, there I did it, has been enlisted to advise in the development of this office in addition to their role with coordinating communication of economic engagement activities throughout the university. So thank you for those who serve on this council and are guiding the development of this area. The Research and Economic Development portfolio within the Office of Research and Economic Development and Innovation is comprised of two areas. So first is the Office of Community Development, Economic and Community Development. And this is a collaborative team that is built around a structure to emphasize the primary areas of the TIP framework. The second area is comprised of units that are affiliated with the university and are aligned with the economic development activities within our community. And these various entities report up through this office. And these include things like the Shenandoah Valley Partnership, which is a member-funded organization that is the Central Shenandoah Valley's designated economic development organization. The Shenandoah Valley Technology Council, which is again a member-funded organization supporting technology users in the region. Virginia Clean Cities, which is a grant-funded center that supports communities in transitioning energy transitions for transportation access. We have a developing center that is focused on supporting applied research and assessment for community-based programs. And then supporting the innovation aspect of the TIP framework is James Madison Innovations, or JMI, the university's affiliated 501c3 organization that's responsible for managing and developing university-created intellectual property. So JMU, in conjunction with the Research and Innovation Support Services, which are often typically referred to as tech transfer, assists creators in translating their research into impact. These offices and associated positions were developed from a combination of reorganization, grant funds, and indirect costs. As a service unit, it's important for us to emphasize that this office does not own economic development, and we don't do all of the economic development activities at the university. Rather, we rely on partnerships and participation across and beyond campus to achieve the mission. Speaking of, next slide. Over the past several months, with guidance from a School of Strategic Leadership Studies PhD student, the team has engaged in a strategic planning process and arrived at a mission and vision statement, which is seen here, and we certainly are open to your feedback. We are currently working on finalizing system steps and strategies so that we can measure our progress towards achieving this vision. We welcome your feedback on this mission and vision statement, and we want to point out that we've tried to emphasize the service role that this office provides to facilitate, connect, and reduce barriers to creating economic and community impact by focusing on a wide funnel pathway or process of discovery, development, and activation of networks and resources. Next slide, please. And lest you think we've been engaging for the past 6 or 7 months in strategic planning only, I wanted to point out that we do have a couple of initiatives that the team has already invested in, and this is just a small representation of some of those initiatives. Mary Sullivan is coordinating a collaborative team of secondary and higher education representatives, community organizations, and businesses to enhance awareness of state resources that are intended to dramatically expand work-based learning opportunities offered to students throughout the Shenandoah Valley. This is a grant project that is supported by the State Council for Higher Education in Virginia and the Virginia Talent and Opportunity Partnership Program, which was alluded to earlier by Mr. Cox. In close partnership with the University Economic Development Council, Nora Sutton within our office is coordinating JMU's application for the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities Innovation and Economic Prosperity Designation, IEP designation. Over 90 institutions have been awarded this designation by APLU. And while the recognition is important to the university, the primary value in pursuing this designation lies in the process of preparing the application. The process requires that we understand the current economic engagement landscape here at JMU, that we obtain stakeholder feedback, and we identify areas of strength and opportunity for enhanced impact. And as a research institution, JMU now has access to apply for resources from the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, or VIPC. These resources have allowed us to expand support for university creators and regional innovators, leading to the advancement of patents and intellectual property that has been developed at the university. And on a related note, next slide, please. We are very excited to announce a partnership with the Harrisonburg Innovation Hub. Based on the successes of the Stanton Innovation Hub, whose mission is to reduce barriers to collaboration and innovation, founder and JMU alum Peter Denby and his team are expanding their co-working facility concept to Harrisonburg. JMU, through the Office of Research, Economic Development, and Innovation, will lease a 1,000 square foot anchor tenant space in the newly renovated Wetzel C building, and slated to open in the fall of 2024. JMU space will host programming from throughout campus that allows us to share JMU expertise, connect faculty and students with regional innovators and entrepreneurs, and foster collaboration opportunities that will allow us to pursue grant funding and help advance the economic activity in the region. An internal team, including representation from JMU Libraries, X Labs, the Gillum Center for Entrepreneurship, the Office for Creative Propulsion, and several others, have already started to engage in this process of planning concepts for programming and activities within this space. So we're really grateful for this partnership, and we're looking forward to what it can mean for JMU and for the region. This has just been a small snapshot of this developing area within research, economic development, and innovation. And given the expertise and experience in this room, we welcome your feedback, your suggestions, and questions on these developments either now or at a later time. Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much. Are there any questions? A whole lot of information.
Yes.
You guys are busy. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely.
I just want to thank Anthony and Keith very much for their leadership in this area. Now that we are an R2 National Research University, this is obviously going to be a very important part of our identity going forward. So we are working internally on sort of an organizational shift to create Ready essentially as a division within the university, but we'll obviously work very closely with our academic colleagues and others across the university and in the community. And again, I just want to emphasize, I think this is an example of what it means to be a university that is making an impact, not just looking internally, but externally with partners, as you've heard. The Innovation Hub is a really exciting development, for example, right here in Harrisonburg. So thank you guys for representing us and for the creativity and the innovation. We've been looking at best practices nationally as we build this out, and we've got great leadership that's helped us to do that. So thank you.
John, sorry, please, go ahead.
I was just gonna say a comment. I remember sitting in this boardroom a while back where we had the research all over the place and you were trying to organize it. And you have done a tremendous job of pulling it all together and creating a vision going forward. So just, it's a lot to be done, but I think now we have it together. I think it's gonna be very impressive. Thank you.
I agree. Help me, this is probably a stupid question, but help me in how should I think about the connection between this work and the activities we heard with research around the Department of State? Separate, connected?
Well,
how do I think
if
about
you
that?
guys want to say words, so we have, of course, a lot of activities and research that involve our students, right? And that's actually very intentional at JMU, is a focus on undergraduate research that's incorporated with the curriculum. And that was a good example, but do you guys want to say anything further about the implications for that kind of example?
Well, there are so many things going on campus as far as federal funding, state funding, all private funding, et cetera, working closely with Nick's team in advancement. And so there are opportunities like these Department of State opportunities. I, for instance, was funded to go to South Africa and Northern Africa twice, 2 trips in the last 6 months, funded by the Department of State to try to make connections internationally for JMU, for our faculty and for our students. So there are a lot of these projects that are going on and connections that are being made, but a lot of the types of things you're hearing about, why was this team over here selected to be funded by the Department of State or to be interacting with them? Because of their excellence in the research, scholarship, and creative activity, and the way in which they're interacting and bringing the students along and developing their expertise at the same time. And so there's some themes there that are pretty common to a lot of these types of funding opportunities, but there actually are quite a breadth as well.
And I think one of the fact, Paula, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to add something also. We also have like a vision to bring this together as well. So we have like a vision to do all this because the Department of State does want to develop the program with us. So we went away with the university because the university is also bringing this together and developing it. So we're actually working on it right now as we speak, how we're going to integrate all of this. That's why I was going to talk to you, Anthony, and with the Department of State with my.
But that's,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
so that's extremely reassuring answer to me, because on the one hand, you want to coalesce resources so that you get leverage out of them. On the other hand, you don't want to create this vast, overwhelming bureaucracy where everything has to go through. So Thank you. What I heard makes me feel like you've hit the right balance.
Thank
Not surprising, but reassuring.
Thanks, Carter. Any other comments? Brian, Anthony, thank you very, very much. Pete, thank you very, very much. Okay, our next agenda, we have a couple of items we need to move into closed session for, so Chris.
Madam Rector, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, I move we go into closed session to discuss personnel matters involving promotions, performance retirements, hiring, resignations, salary adjustments, and status changes of faculty members, university administrators, and appointees. 2, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A7, to consult with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation. And 3, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A11 of the Code of Virginia, to consider an honorary degree.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, we'll take 5 minutes in order to prepare. 5 minutes.
Those are wonderful questions.
Next time I see you, you're not.
And that you're
Think about it. All right, beers next time.
Okay, thank you. So I am expected to, in taking us out of closed session. During the closed session, the board discussed only matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements. And only those types of matters identified in the motion for the closed session will need to go around the table to agree.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
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 Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Yes, thank you. Okay, for that, is there a motion to approve the personnel action report?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? So moved. Laura?
Madam Rector, I move the board approve the honorary degree recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? So moved. Thank you very much. So I have, I'm sorry, I say one. Yeah.
Before you leave, if you're interested, we do have a lots of different pieces of information up here that different folks have left for you in case you're interested. So please check it out and take any that you want.
I have two other things. First, to announce the nominating committee. Laura Major has agreed to be chair. The other two members of the nominating committee will be John Rothenberger and Dickie Bell. So thank you all for your service. As a board, what you can expect next is phone calls from these people who will be soliciting input on who, whether or not you'd be interested in serving as either rector or vice rector. I have received several already, which has been phenomenal. I love the level of support and engagement across this body. But also looking to get your input on who you would like to see in these roles. They will put together a draft slate that then will be vetted with the rest of the board prior to coming into the meeting next April. Okay. So it's a lot of work and I appreciate you all for agreeing to serve in this capacity. So please be open and willing to the phone calls and expressing your views. All right. Any questions about what's going to be happening next in that? Great, very good. And then finally, this weekend is Donna Harper's birthday. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity. I'll wish Donna Harper happy birthday.
Thank you.
And with that, and yes,
Question?
sure.
Oh, the retreat details again, just a little bit. It's this Saturday, the 20th.
Correct. The Saturday after our April 4th
Okay.
meeting, it will be in Hartman Hall.
Okay.
So it will be here on campus, but in a different facility. If you haven't had an opportunity to be in Hartman Hall, it is a beautiful addition to the College of Business. So it's a wonderful, wonderful facility and venue.
We have times.
Morning
8:30.
Okay.
8:30 to 2 is what we're talking. 8:30 to 3. I think.
Maybe 10 o'clock.
8:30 to 3.
A lot of it depends on how much discussion.
Okay.
But this
So we'll send you the
opportunity,
questions.
Okay.
I'll send you the questions on Monday.
as long as Jack makes us stay.
Yeah.
And I apologize in advance to my fellow trustees. I have had a long-standing conflict, which I made Madam Rector and the President aware of. I will not be attending this year's retreat. It will be the last time I miss it. I will do my homework, Chad. So, but my apologies. I'm sorry to have to miss it. I'm chairing another board, which meets the same day.
Great, that's
A request. I don't know, if before the retreat and planning for the retreat, we just get a summation of what we did last year and that retreat, how it was incorporated in, and then the overall, you know, how this, the work we do in April, how it fits into our strategic plan. We can be helpful.
So Donna said something. you
Maybe just, you know, at the very beginning of it, say, hey, here's the big picture. This is what we did last year. This is what we're going to do this year, and this is how it all fits in. That would be helpful.
we got it.
Yeah, and we have a schedule, you know, so you'll kind of know what's going to happen during the day.
Great.
Yeah.
And Donna, did you?
Just one more thing I wanted to mention, if you remember when I sent the board materials to you with the full board, we had a note in there about a change for the April 2025 meeting. So if you are putting all those dates on your calendar, please make that change. We inadvertently had it scheduled for Easter weekend and we realized that wouldn't be good, so we changed it. So please make sure you make that note of change for April 2025.
Thank you in advance for finding. And then my final note is, if there are any topics that are of interest for you, similar to Carly's reminding us that having an overview of the investment strategy for the foundation, if there's anything that interests you that you would like to see brought into discussion for the board meeting or overview for the board meeting, please reach out and let us know. This is your time that's being invested here in the university. We do our best to make sure that you have the information we feel that is most important for you to know, but also want to make sure that we're taking care of your interests.
Mary Beth, do you want those requests or should you send them to the chair of the committee of jurisdiction?
Both, either. So that'd be great. Thanks. All right, and with that, I will officially call us adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.